And I'm your host, Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? Happy to be with you on a Friday show as we get the weekend started. Hopefully the same way the Phillies did last night with 3 bombs from Brad Miller. We'll dive into what that win meant for the Phillies last night, because there's something that I brought up the other day that win by the Phillies last night may have impacted. I'll tell you what I'm talking about coming up in just a couple of minutes. Some Eagles stuff on the way today. Jeff Kerr tonight, football at 4 as always. NBA Finals, kind of as I predicted. I thought the Suns would win last night. I think Milwaukee will win the next 2. But there's something in that game last night that everybody keeps talking about today. And you know what? They're right to talk about it, and we will too. Susie Hunter's ballpark tour has taken her to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. We'll check in with her live from Colorado at 3 o'clock today. Hopefully you're enjoying the Friday edition of the Sports Bash as we kick things off with the Phillies last night. Have to start there. I mean, this is a situation where this team is so frustrating sometimes. A sweep in this series would have been a tremendous way to get people, you know, we talk about you own the spotlight. The Sixers are now kind of a distant memory, a distant, disappointing memory. And the Phillies, with a win last night, you know, the Mets lost. I actually don't think the Mets played last night, right? I think they lost the day before. I think they had a day off yesterday. And the Phillies get a win. They move within 4. They're back in second place of the Mets. But just think, if they had the win the night before with Zach Wheeler on the mound, you sweep that series, and you're at 43 and 42, a game above 500, and you're 3.5 behind the Mets with a chance to make up some ground in a weekend series against Boston here if you can win 2 out of 3 or at least keep it within 4 games. The difference between like 3.5 and 5 seems to be so astronomical. We talked about this with Mike McGarry the other day. If you're 4.5, 5 games back, that's a lot of games to make up with half the season left. It's doable. But, you know, that win the other night is a big one. But what it did last night, it really knocked the Cubs. You know, they're almost 10 games out right now. They've lost, 12 out of 13, and the Cubs are in sell mode now. We talked about this the other day. You want to sweep the Cubs. You want to put that team into sell. And there's reports coming out today that they have a fire sale going on. You're going to see Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Craig Kimbrell, and possibly others get sold by the Cubs. A team that was in first place like 12 days ago, 15 days ago, and now they've lost 12 out of 13, and here they sit at the third spot in the Central, 9.5 back. They're tied with the Cardinals. That division's a mess right now. Cincinnati's been a complete disappointment. They're 7 back. Chicago and St. Louis have been disappointments. They're both 9.5 back. And then, of course, Pittsburgh is way out of it at 19.5 back. So that division essentially looks like it is wrapped up. It looks like the Brewers are going to win that division. Out west, it's a 3-team race. You've got San Francisco still playing well with Gabe Kapler's crew. You've got the Dodgers, a heavy favorite entering the year, and the Padres, many people thought would be right there with the Dodgers. Those teams are all within 4 games of first place in the West, as with the final weekend before the All-Star break. In the American League, Boston leads Tampa by 2.5, and everybody else is at least 8 back. Toronto 8, New York 9, Baltimore 25. Yes, 25. How are you so bad that you're 25 games out of first place halfway through the season? I mean, what are they going to finish out? 50 games? Seriously. What's the most games someone has finished out of first place? Josh, can you find that information? Baltimore is 25 games out of first place. 25! Actually, Arizona's 30.5 games back. 30! Holy cow. 30 games out of first place they are, and we're not even halfway through the season yet. Central, you got Chicago, 7.5 up on the Indians, so they're basically out. Detroit's 12 back, so Chicago's going to win the Central. Houston's 4.5 up on Oakland, 8 up on Seattle. And then there's the East, which has 4 teams within 4.5 games of each other. The Mets lead the Phillies by 4. They lead the Braves by 4.5. They lead Washington by 4.5. That's where we are. Final weekend, heading into the All-Star break. So how did you get there last night? Well, Brad Miller was the story. He hit 3 homers in the game last night. For the first time in his career, he goes yard 3 times. They beat them 8-0 last night. You get a great pitching performance out of Eflin last night. And look, it was a little funny when the lineup came out, and I think Kruk brought this up during the broadcast. Hey, he better know what he's doing with these guys. You had Rhys Hoskins get the night off, and Brad Miller inserted in the lineup and comes through big time. Eflin, I thought, pitched solid last night. 6 innings, and you needed that because Wheeler did not have his best game, so you need your third guy, Zach Eflin, to kind of step up and say, all right, Zach Wheeler, you didn't have your best game last night. Let me step in there for you and get the job done. And he did, and I thought it was a big win for them for a couple of reasons. One, it really sends Chicago the message that you need to sell, and that's not the top reason. Like, you don't need to care about what Chicago's going through, but as I talked about, if you're the Phillies and you realistically want to make the playoffs, you got to add at least a bullpen piece or 2, and you need more teams that want to sell. Now, can the Phillies do something? Because as I have said, I think it's time to kind of shake this core up, just kind of mix it up a little bit. And I don't know if that means including Rhys Hoskins in a deal or Aaron Nola. We know the particulars with Segura and McCutchen and Didi. You're not spinning off like you just say, hey, let's trade Hoskins for Rizzo. That's probably not going to happen, not something like that. But can you go in their bullpen? Can you find a guy in their bullpen to say, hey, look, you guys are out of it. There's a couple bullpen arms we'll give you this guy. Just more options is what we're kind of looking at here. But look, you look at the lineup like that. Brad Miller had 3 home runs. He had 5 RBI in the game. But Segura, leading off, I like what they've done, moving him to the leadoff spot. I think that's really helped this team. DD had 3 hits last night, a couple of ribbies. That was good to see. So a couple of good things in the game last night, but really the story is Brad Miller. But I also thought the pitching, this is what you need here. Zach Eflin gives you 6. Can I get my starter to get me 6? Okay. Archie Bradley comes in, scoreless inning. Hector Neris comes in, scoreless inning with a couple of strikeouts. Makes me feel a little bit better that maybe Neris has gotten past a little rough patch. Is he great? No. Serviceable? Sure. And then they brought Suarez in, and he had a pair of strikeouts as well. He lowered his ERA to .83. I don't know what the message is throwing Suarez there. Maybe it's just, hey, he needs to get some work, so let's get him out there. Because I think Suarez is going to get the opportunity to close games out for this team. So you got the 3 with Boston coming up. New York's going to play Pittsburgh. The goal here is to not be 6 or 7 games out when the All-Star break gets here. At worst, you want to be 4. At best, you want to gain a game or 2, obviously. But you're at 4 right now. Don't go down to Boston. You just had a night. Look, the Phillies have done something they haven't been able to do. They won on the road. They have been a bad road team. Right? They've been a bad road team this year. They just went 3 of 4 on the road. And here's a reason why I think what the Phillies have done should be taken notice by people out there. Look, I've been hard on this team, and they deserve it. But here's something, if you want a positive spin on things, here's something that I think is positive. They've won 5 out of 7. Including 4 of those games were on the road. 2 of 3 against San Diego, which is a good baseball team. So 5 of 7, they beat San Diego 2 out of 3, and they went on the road and won 3 out of 4. That could have easily been a San Diego comes in here and the Phillies won 4-3 and 4-2. So they won 2 close games against a good team to take 2 out of 3, and then they went on the road against a struggling team where they're not playing very well on the road, and they were able to win 3 out of 4. Those are some positive signs. but can you finish the deal by sneaking 2 out somehow here? Velasquez, Richards tonight, Moore, Perez tomorrow, Nola, Pivetta on Sunday. They're your pitching matchups. I mean, quite frankly, I think you have only one of the 3 pitching matchups in your favor. Couple of quick research notes from Josh here. The 1906 Boston Braves finished 66 games out, 66 and a half. How do you finish a half game out at the end of the year? The 1909 Braves were 65 and a half games out. The 2018 Orioles finished 61 games back in the American League East. Jeez, 61 games back. The 1941 Phillies finished 57 games back. And the 62 Mets finished 60 and a half games back in the National League East. So we might see the Arizona Diamondbacks this year join these 60-plus games behind. It's unbelievable. I said, for Baltimore's 25 back, and I'm thinking 25, and then I scrolled down to the West, and I said, they're 30 and a half out. 30 and a half. So that's the weekend series for the Phils. They've got Boston tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday in Fenway. And they're all over the map, too. It's a 7 o'clock tonight, 4 o'clock tomorrow, 1 o'clock on Sunday. So you got 3 different times. And then, as we've mentioned to you guys in the past, I'll just reiterate this for you. All-Star break, Monday Derby, Tuesday All-Star game. Nobody plays Wednesday or Thursday. And then the Phillies are back Friday with a 4-gamer, a double dip against the Marlins. So you got 4 against the Marlins right out of the chutes, 2 against the Yankees up at the stadium, 4 against Atlanta, 4 against Washington, and you close the month out of July against the Pittsburgh Pirates on the road, and then you're down to Washington for 4 before you take on the Mets. The point I'm making of this is you play the Mets on August the 6th. You need that series to be impactful. And I'm not saying like, hey, we're 7 back. If we win a sweep, we can cut it back to 4. No, you need to be within striking distance of the Mets by August the 6th. Because after that, you don't play the Mets again, but 3 times, September 17th, 18th, and 19th. So you have 1 month to catch and get within striking distance of the Mets, or you don't face them again until September, and by that time, it might be too late. So Philly fans, if you are anticipating any expectations of trying to make a playoff push this year, those are the games. 3 starting tonight in Boston, 4 against Miami starting on next Friday, 2 against the Yankees, 4 against Atlanta, 4 against Washington, 3 against Pittsburgh, 4 against Washington before you face the Mets. When you get to that Mets series, you better be within 3 games. Over on the text board, let's light up that text board today. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Plenty of ways to get in touch with the show. As always on a Friday, you can hit us up on the text board. You can get us on the phones at 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. Text board number, we just threw it out there, 609-403-0973. You can, of course, always download the free mobile app and message us right through the app, and that will come to our text board as well. Or if you're watching the show live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, just leave a comment in the comments section, and we'll get that as well. So plenty of ways for you guys to engage. Give us your thoughts. Now, here's what I want to know on this Happy Hour Friday. The Phillies win last night. They're 4 back. I just gave you the schedule and laid it all out there for you. If the Phillies can add something, 2 bullpen arms, a bullpen arm, they're going to get something. They're going to do, and it might be just what they did last year. Hey, we'll go out and get Brandon Workman and Heath Hembry or Alan Hembry. What the hell was the guy's name who stunk? Heath Hembry. We get 2 guys like that. They just went out and got Cam Bedreau. They're going to do something in that bullpen. They're not going to keep this bullpen. That would be my prediction anyway. If they tighten the screws in the bullpen, is that enough? Enough for you to say, okay, because offensively, when they're healthy, they've been good enough. Their starting pitching has been good enough. Their defense and their bullpen has not been good enough. It's pitching and defense that is letting this team down. And you can, until the cows come home, tell yourself that it's, home runs and hitting. It's not, and it never will be. It will be pitching and defense forever and ever and ever. Pitching and defense still wins and always wins. The Phillies offense, not consistent enough. It's good. It's not great. Their pitching, starting pitching, it's good enough. But their bullpen and their defense, not good enough. 609-403-0973 over on the text board. So that's some Phil stuff, and we'll talk some Phils later with Bob Wankel. We'll kind of look back at the first half, how big of a weekend series this really is. I'm not big on, hey, it's a must-win type of situation because, look, quite frankly, the Mets, they're playing Pittsburgh. You're anticipating that they win, but who knows? I mean, Pittsburgh has been playing a little bit better of recent, but you can't worry about them. You've got to do what you got to do and get your wins. And as I said, you got to start stacking them up. Miami next week, 3 out of 4. Split with the Yankees. At worst, you split with the Braves. You got to win series against teams like the Nationals and start pushing them back. You've got 8 games with the Nationals coming up in the month of July. 8. You only play 6 with the Mets the rest of the way. Phillies, Nationals. And you know what's funny? You scroll all the way down to the end of the Phillies schedule. And wouldn't it be interesting? You play at Atlanta and at Miami to close out the season. Wouldn't it be interesting if those Marlins were sitting there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and you were 2 back with 3 to play, and you had to beat the Marlins all 3 games to try to get a playoff berth? It just feels like that could be the way. And look, that would be much better situation than you're in now. And by the way, here's a question. Brad Miller hit 3 bombs last night. Do you have to start him again tonight? Right? Doesn't he have to be in the lineup somewhere tonight? They're facing a right-handed pitcher. It's probably a good way to get him in there. That's right. Good point out of you, Josh. There is a DH tonight. You could use, the Phillies have plenty of DH options. Hoskins, Bohm, Miller. And Brad Miller, who's not a great defensive player either. So, by the way, the Phillies against Garrett Richards, who's pitching tonight, have faced him. Gene Segura has faced him 8 times, McCutchen twice, and Didi twice. No other Philly has faced Garrett Richards ever. So that's just something to throw out there for tonight's game. Vince Velasquez gets the ball for the Phils. On the flip side, they have not hit him very well either. The best hitter has been Marwin Gonzalez, who has 1 hit and 3 at-bats against Velasquez. So Velasquez gets the ball for the Phils. That's how the night goes for them. I'm looking forward to the series. Boston is the best team in the American League East. Let's see how the Phillies stack up. And by the way, for the best team in the American League East, that is the Boston Red Sox. They are 54-34, 20 games over 500, 614 winning percentage. That is good for best in the American League. When it comes to league, they are second best. San Francisco, Gabe Kapler's crew, the Giants, they are the best team in baseball still at 54-32. Phillies currently stand at 42-43 with a big series against Boston tonight. Mike McGarry from the Press joins me in 15 minutes. We'll take a look at the weekend series and some other things going around, including, oh yes, Ben Simmons' name has come up in another trade. It's a team you've heard of already. We'll break it down coming up here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, Sports Bash Live, 225 here on a Friday. Happy Hour Friday, everybody. Hopefully you're enjoying the Friday. It's hot out there today. Hopefully you're enjoying a cold beverage on this Happy Hour Friday. What is the IPA of choice today? What shall I go with? I don't know. Somebody give me a recommendation out there. Give me a good one. I am on the look for, so anybody out there can help me find today, this weekend, I am on the hunt for the Drake's Kickback. I know a couple places who have had it, but I have gone to these places recently and it has not been there. So if anybody knows where I can get the Drake's Kickback, that would be my Happy Hour Friday purchase of the weekend. 609-403-0973. Drake's Kickback is what I'm looking for. Where's my guy who found me the Golden Road? What the heck was that called? Hazy Pup. Jay, where's he at? I need to find the Drake's Kickback, dude. Somebody get one for me. Somebody find it for me. On a Happy Hour Friday, I'm Mike Hill. What's up? 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. It is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And I know someone's going to find it for me out there. At Mike Gill Show on Twitter, 609-403-0973. If you can hit me up on the text board to let me know. All right, Ben Simmons' name keeps coming up. It's going to happen a lot, but apparently there's a report out there that the Timberwolves are definitively interested. They want to be involved in trade talks for Ben Simmons. According to multiple reports, Minnesota is looking at D'Angelo Russell as kind of part of the core, and they would like to keep him. So if they want to keep D'Angelo Russell, doesn't that essentially break down all trade talks with Minnesota? Not even like I'm all that interested in D'Angelo Russell, but Elton Brand apparently met with Gerson Rosas out in the NBA Combine, and I guess part of it was to discuss a Ben Simmons trade. Minnesota is definitively interested in Ben Simmons, you would think, and of course, Ben Simmons makes a lot of sense for Minnesota. They're a horrible, horrible defensive team. They basically need a guy who can find their shooters. There you go. Now, Timberwolves president basketball operations, we mentioned Gerson Rojas and Elton Brand, they meet today. They want to discuss Ben Simmons. The negotiations not going anywhere at this point because they're saying that they don't want to add D'Angelo Russell in the deal. But if I'm looking up and down the roster of the Minnesota Timberwolves, I don't see a deal that makes any sense for Philadelphia unless the only one that I could say, okay, entertain me with this, is if you want to give me Anthony Edwards. And they're not doing that. Anthony Edwards exceeded expectations in my mind. I was a little on Anthony Edwards. Now, he wasn't great this year shooting the ball, but he could score the ball. He shot 33% from three-point range, not very good. But he did score the ball this year. I mean, he averaged about 20 a game in Minnesota, but they're not giving, I don't think anyway, I don't think they're giving up the number one overall pick. Now, the problem I have with Anthony Edwards entering the league, I thought he's a little small, a little undersized. I don't know that he's a great shooter. Well, I think we've seen that he's not a great shooter. That doesn't mean you can't be a great shooter. Interestingly enough, I know that this is a sore subject in this area, but look at last night's game, and you look at what Bridges was able to do last night. Shot the ball, 3 threes. That is one that Sixer fans are going to be looking back on and saying, what the heck, man? They traded Bridges. They got Zaire Smith in return. Smith is out of the league. And they got that first-round pick from Phoenix that they spun off to L.A. to get Tobias Harris. So there is some layers to it. But on the surface, it's, hey, as people have mentioned on our show, maybe you could have got Tobias Harris with a different pick. Maybe it didn't have to be that particular pick that you gave away to get Harris. But Bridges last night, 38 points, 3 threes. He was 8 for 8 from the line, 27 points, 7 rebounds. He's a good defensive player. Bridges would be a player that would be helping this team out. Is he making him a championship contender? Maybe. I mean, he's on a team that might win the championship right now. But I'm going back to the point I'm making about Anthony Edwards is Bridges is not a great shooter, but he has worked on his shot. He did not enter the league as a great shooter, but he has worked on his shot. You can, Ben Simmons, work on your shot. That can happen. You got to want to do it. And so far, it appears that somebody like Mikal Bridges worked on his shot. He has worked on, he's not a great shooter during the course of the season. 13 points. Actually, shot the ball well in the regular season, 42% from 3, which is outstanding. He doesn't shoot the 3 all that much. Postseason, 35%. Not a great score. In the regular season, he averaged 13.5. But in the postseason, he shot the ball last night. In the finals, he shot the ball well. 3 threes last night. 3 for 9, actually. It wasn't great, but still 3 threes. You can work on the shot. You can make your shot better. That's where I see Anthony Edwards. Is he a guy that could be a shot maker? He's kind of small for a forward, but he's not a great shooter, and he's not a great ball handler. So I don't know. That's an interesting one. But they're not giving up Anthony Edwards for Ben Simmons, I wouldn't imagine. You're completely just changing the complexion of your team. You had this number 1 overall pick, and you're basically saying, hey, let me get an established player like Ben Simmons because we're too young, and because we're so young, we can't win because we don't have, that's a weird mindset to go say, oh, let's go get Ben Simmons, a 24-year-old who still has to kind of rebuild his game. So I just don't see, so these reports, Minnesota wants Ben Simmons. Great. All right, somebody wants him. And by the way, a lot of people want Ben Simmons. It's just not them, but they definitively are interested. Okay, great. Somebody wants Ben Simmons. The problem is the team that wants him, apparently they don't want to give up D'Angelo Russell. Who else on that roster do you want? There's the problem. I got nobody on that roster I have any interest in. Malik Beasley, Jarrett Culver has kind of been a bust. The kid from Texas Tech. Remember when Texas Tech went to the final game a couple of years ago? He has not really panned out. By the way, he got drafted by Phoenix. They missed on him too. The one guy on Minnesota that you might have interest in is Anthony Edwards. And if you want a veteran player, it would be D'Angelo Russell. And that's really it. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is, nope, that doesn't work either. You're not taking – what draft choice does Minnesota have this year? Where are they at? They got to be in the top 5, I would think, right? You're not trading Ben Simmons for salary dumps and a draft choice. Not with this team. They just don't have enough guys that make any salary. The only guys that have salary would be Ricky Rubio. You would have to pair up like Ricky Rubio, Herman Gomez, Malik Beasley would need to be in that deal. That's just a bunch of spare parts. You're not doing that. You're not trading Ben Simmons for spare parts and a pick. What pick is theirs, Josh?
Minnesota does not have their pick because they traded it to Golden State the Andrew Wiggins deal.
Oh, my gosh.
They got them D'Angelo Russell in the first place. So the Warriors.
So they gave the Warriors that 7th pick.
That became, it's the 7th overall pick now. It would have been Minnesota's if they didn't make the Wiggins D'Angelo Russell deal.
It's kind of nauseating, but the Wiggins thing wasn't working. But D'Angelo Russell isn't doing much for you either.
Well,
I don't understand.
They got to remember, they got D'Angelo Russell in part because him and Karl Anthony Towns are best friends. They're BFFs. They're trying to make the star player happy.
Right.
That's half the reason why he's there.
I know. Yeah, but you gave him a first-round pick so you can put best. I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now an AAU team. Hey, let's put these best friends together.
Hey, you know what? If that's what you got to do to keep your star player, maybe Minnesota thinks it's worth it for some dumb reason.
You got to start reevaluating Karl Anthony Towns, by the way. right? I mean, how many years are you going to keep him before you decide he's not a winning player?
Well, how many years are you going to keep spinning in circles around another big man that you didn't put enough talent around? They've been through this before. It was called Kevin Garnett and Kevin Love.
Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. At Matt Blatt, they want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. So Minnesota, interest in Ben Simmons. I don't see a connection there. If they don't want to part with D'Angelo Russell, which is what they've said, I don't see how you make any deal with them. We'll ask Mike. Plus, Danny Green's comments, off base, on base. What does Mike think about that? Phillies weekend against the Red Sox after a 3 out of 4. They've won 5 out of 7. They're 4 back of the Metropolitans. We got all that and more coming up. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins me next here on the Sports Bash. All right, 240, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. His must-win column runs in the Friday edition of the Press of Atlantic City, so we will dive into what he's looking at today. And, of course, look at the weekend for the Phils and everything else that's going on. I know that a lot of people were talking about what Danny Green had to say yesterday. Now, I said if Green was thinking about coming here, he might be reevaluating after looking at his mentions. I'm not sure he's going to be so welcomed. But Gary says, well, if they pay him the most money, he'll be back here. And you're probably right about that. In the grand scheme of things, I don't know, is that his way of being like, I'm not all that interested in coming back here?
I don't know what he's thinking about. To me, that comment bought into a stereotype that I just don't think is true at all. It's continued by Danny Green yesterday. It's continued by the Philadelphia media, and it's continued by fans itself, that somehow Philadelphia sports fans are tougher than any other fans in any other city in the United States of America. I just think all fans are the same. I don't think the Philadelphia fans are any tougher than the fans in Los Angeles, Seattle, Texas. I mean, I think that
I don't know that I agree with that, Mike. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday. Like Tampa Bay, for instance, they win the back-to-back Stanley Cups. They've won a Super Bowl. The baseball team goes to the World Series. Like, they just don't care as much as the people here. Is that fair to say? Like, they don't live and die by it. It does, like, because if their team loses, they go to the beach. They got stuff to do. The weather's nice. Like, they don't. A lot of people didn't grow up there. They weren't ingrained in it. Like, I do think the people here are irrational in a good way about, like, the passion the people in the Northeast have. A lot of it is, look, there's misery. The weather sucks half the year. And like, you go to a game in Tampa. You ever been to a hockey game in Tampa?
No, I haven't.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You go there, win, lose, or draw. They got bands playing outside. There's palm trees. You're wearing shorts. If they win or lose, you don't give a hoot.
Right. It's the same argument that people make with the San Diego Padres and baseball and stuff like that. It's perfect. If they lose, it's still a perfect day. I just think, I'll give you this. In the Northeast corridor, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, I think it's more consistent passion for every team in every sport. But I think if you go around the country, like, I think you could talk to a couple SEC football coaches. I think you've got some irrational fans in Alabama, Georgia, LSU. I think you out to Los Angeles, it's not every team, but I think the Dodgers are under a microscope. The Lakers are under a microscope. USC football, believe it or not, is under a big-time microscope in LA. So I think while it's here, it's consistent across all four sports. Look, I just sit in the stands at Citizens Bank Park, and I don't think the Philadelphia fans are mean to players, or I don't think – I was at every Sixers playoff game. I don't think the Sixer fans could have been more supportive to Ben Simmons. They did everything but bring him orange slices after the game. They applauded when he made 3 throws in warm-ups, for God's sakes.
Is Danny Green targeting the social media people who go after him?
I just think sometimes athletes say stuff and they're just answering questions and they don't know kind of what to say. Because honestly, I don't know how Philadelphia fans could have been more supportive of Ben Simmons and the Sixers through this whole thing. They lost 3 home games. Here's what I would recommend for the Sixers and the Danny Greens of the world right now. Just go away. Just go away. Don't do any podcasts. Don't do any interviews. Go away. We'll see you when training camp opens up, the end of September. We don't need to be hearing from anybody connected with the Philadelphia 76ers right now, unless it's to tell us that Ben Simmons has been traded for Damian Lillard. That's the only time we want to hear from him.
You're probably right about that. Like, get away, go on vacation. Although Ben Simmons tried to go to Wimbledon, and he can't even do that.
I don't have a problem with him doing that. I mean, the guy's entitled to have a life and a good time. Maybe he shot 100 free throws before he took in Djokovic at center court, so I'll give him a break there.
Right. So he should be working on his game, not working on his sex life, right?
Yeah, well, I think, I don't give you the Jackie Gleason there, humming, but he's entitled to have a life. It was a long season. I'm not going to begrudge him there. If he starts showing up in the tabloids every other day, though, then I think it's an issue. Yeah. But, going to Wimbledon, he gets a pass for me on that one.
I do agree with what you're saying. Like, the fans are supportive. Like, they were like, with Markelle Fultz. I almost feel, though, like it's almost counterproductive. Like, Fultz hit the three. The place treats him like he's like a third grader who came in third place. It's almost like a Bronx cheer. Like, you made a free throw and they're cheering you. Like, I don't think that that's helpful.
Yeah, well, here's what I say. Maybe because I grew up in here. I've been down here in the Philadelphia area now for 25 years. Grew up in New York. Traveled to Boston a lot of sporting events up in Boston. I just think, you go. I see the crowded Citizens Bank Park. To me, it's like Disney World. It's like people. It's families. It's people waiting to go on Peter Pan's ride or Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Yeah, they'll boo when Hector Neris gives up 6 runs in the 8th inning in a torrential downpour, the way he did on July 4th. But they don't show up looking to spew venom at people. They're very supportive. So I just don't buy the idea that professional athletes are going to say, oh, Philadelphia is too mean for me. I can't play there, basically, because I don't think it is.
No, and I think there's a reason, Mike, why so many athletes who come to Philly end up staying here and living here and being a part. Like, you get guys who have played here 1 year or 2 years, and they're more identified in their time here than they were in the places they were at for most of their careers. So whatever it is about playing in Philly and all that stuff, mostly turns out to be positive more so than negative. I would agree with that.
And my point is, I don't think it's unique to Philadelphia. Now, what is unique in the Northeast is, I think, and you kind of hit it there, is that all 4 teams are important, right? That all 4 teams are followed passionately, and that's not the case in every town. But I think if you were going to go play for the Los Angeles Lakers, if you're going to go play for the Cleveland Browns, if you're going to go coach the University of Texas, if you're going to be the quarterback at USC, you're going to face these same sort of pressures that you face in Philadelphia. So I think it's just feeds into a stereotype that oh my God, you can't play in Philadelphia because the fans are mean to Ben Simmons. Nobody was mean to Ben Simmons at all. The guy made 30% of his foul shots, and people were applauding when he made them in warmups. I mean, enough.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the fans were trying to help Ben Simmons out. They wanted to support him in the arena. Now, social media, that's a whole different animal.
Right.
Apparently, Minnesota's interested, but they don't want to include D'Angelo Russell. Then you hang up the phone immediately, and I don't even know if I after the phone for D'Angelo Russell, by the way.
Exactly. I think I said this last week. Here's my position with Ben Simmons. I'm not going backwards with Ben Simmons, okay? This is a team that won 50 games, has been to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals the past 2 seasons, or 2 out of the past 3 seasons that he was healthy. I'm not going backwards from that. If I can't trade him for an elite combination point guard scorer that I can think the Sixers can make a championship run with, I'll bring back Ben Simmons and take my chances that maybe he got better. Because if he scores 6 more points in the fourth quarter, you might win these series. Now, I don't think you can win a championship, but at least you might be able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'm not just giving away Ben Simmons just to give him away.
Yeah, I know watching that game last night, over the years, just the Sixers have made a lot of mistakes, but that Bridges trade is the one that really stands out now as one of the big ones.
Yeah, I mean, for Zaire Smith, a guy who's not even in the league right now, and it's compounded by the fact that Bridges' mother worked for the team, and they took pictures with him and held a press conference and everything else. So it really is one of the, if you're going to retrace some of the moves that have gone wrong in the Sixers process, that would be it, because he would kind of fit in perfectly with the Sixers right now. So
yeah, I mean, when you go back to that deal, Mike, it's a couple of years ago, but do you think they made it thinking that Smith was a better player or fit, or did they want that pick so bad that they were willing to part with Bridges to get the pick?
It's interesting. I think, at the time, maybe they were in love with picks and they thought they could spin that pick into something else. And, the quote unquote star hunting, that was, I believe that was the night that Brett Brown uttered that phrase. So, get the pick and try to turn that into a star, accumulate more assets there. Sometimes it's better to be happy with what you have, because Bridges has turned out to be, a very good player on a team that's 2 wins away from the NBA championship.
Wild. All right, Phillies got Boston this weekend. They got 3 out of 4. They've won 5 out of 7. I think we've been in this same boat for much of our conversations here. However, if they can just get a bullpen piece or two, does that change your thoughts at all?
Not really. Not really, because I think that the things that are going
to there, McGarry.
That are going to bite them are going to be the back end of the rotation, and the defense is going to cost them games. I think this is a big 3 games for them, right? They won 5 of 7. They did what they had to do. They take 2 out of 3 from San Diego, as you said. They go into Chicago. Chicago's reeling. They win 3 out of 4. Chicago's ready to trade everybody. They take advantage of that. Now you're going to go play the Boston Red Sox in Boston. Now, if I'm the Phillies, I got to be a little greedy here. Before I went on this trip, I would have said, okay, 4-3. I'll sign for that. But now that I just took 3 out of 4 from the Cubs, I want 2 out of 3 from Boston this weekend. Don't get swept in Boston. Don't win 1 out of 2.
Yeah.
Put the foot down, get 2 out of 3, and then, go into the break and come out of the break with some momentum, and then we'll see what we'll be. We'll see where we are. I think this is a real sort of test, a measuring stick of where the Phillies are these 3 games, basically.
Yeah, you play New York, the Mets, early, mid-August. And by that time, when you play that Mets team, you need to be within striking distance because you don't play the Mets again until mid-September. That's it. So they got to be hanging around. So they got a big month of the rest of July because they play Washington 8 times, Miami 4, Atlanta 4, and then the Mets.
Yeah, and I think this weekend is big, too, because you're not pitching into one of your strengths, right? You're not going to have Wheeler or Eflin throw in this series. You're going to have Vince Velasquez throw tonight. You're going to have Matt Moore throw. So, the back end of the rotation, which is a weakness, let's see them step up and show us something here. I think this is a big weekend, and we can find out if the Phillies are for real or what we've seen the past week is a bit of a mirage. I think this is a nice test for them going into Boston.
All right, Mike McGarry's must-win column is in today's Press of Atlantic City. You can get it at pressofatlanticcity.com. Recalling the night that Mike Trout was selected, and this weekend there could be some more local names selected on Major League Baseball draft this Sunday.
Yeah, you got Chase Petty, the mainland regional pitcher that we've talked about before, throws 100 miles an hour. The draft is Sunday night. Right now, Chase is probably, you see some mock drafts with him being selected in the late first round. You see him as maybe a second round selection, a guy who is, but if he was picked in the second round, would receive a big what they call an over the slot signing bonus. So these are going to be a huge couple of days for Chase. We'll have a story online, I think later today, and in the paper Sunday. Kind of life-changing days for him, right? Because he could get picked by a professional team and sign a contract with a 7-figure signing bonus. So exciting days for him, and the mainland guys will all be out there in Denver for the draft on Sunday, and then the second round is Monday. So we'll see what happens. And as you said, if he's picked in the first round, he's the first player from a CAL school to go since Mike Trout was picked 25th by the Angels in 2009. That worked out pretty good for the Angels.
It did work out pretty well. Now, if you go back to that, were they anticipating being picked in the first round? Did they think, or was it kind of, I'm trying to think back of the hype and the buzz around him and whether it was similar to Solamento's getting and Petty is getting right now.
It was pretty big, but back then in 2009, that was the first year that MLB really put on their draft show. It was their MLB studios had just opened up there in Secaucus. It was the first time Bud Selig was the commissioner. They had it up there in that Studio 42 that you see all the time. And as I wrote today in my column, Mike Trout was the only player. Now, remember, Steven Strasburg was the first pick in that draft. Mike Trout was the only player to show up in Secaucus for the draft. So I can still see him, his mom and dad, his brother and sister sitting in the pseudo dugout on the side, kind of nervously waiting. Because here's the thing, Mike, the thing about the baseball draft, it's unpredictable. It's not like basketball or football where teams draft for need, talent is. It's all about signability. Do you want to take a chance on a high school guy? Do you want to take a chance on a college guy? So really, teams go into this draft, kids go into this draft really having no idea of what's going to happen, basically.
That's Sunday. So if you want to keep track of some of these local players, the Major League Baseball draft Sunday, check out Mike's piece on the night Mike Trout was drafted. It's in today's edition of the Press of Atlantic City. His must-win column runs every Friday. All right, Mike, enjoy your weekend, man.
All right, you too, Mike. See you later.
All right, that's Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. And, of course, he'll be back on Monday, and we'll take a look back at the Phillies at the midway point. We're going to do that tonight with Bob Wankel. We'll preview the series with the Boston Red Sox. How important is this? And how about Susie Hunter on the other side? Where is she now? Well, she's at the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, Coors Field. So all the events leading up, what has she been doing? We'll continue to check in with Susie Hunter when she joins us next, raising money for a great cause. We'll tell you all about it. Don't go away. Check out Susie on the live video stream.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
All right, a Friday edition of the Sports Bash. Happy Hour Friday, everybody. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Oh, man, the weather was last night terrible. Downpour. Awful. Hopefully we get that rain out of here, that tropical storm that came through. I was driving in it last night. It was torrential, but I'm sure the weather could be a lot nicer in Denver, Colorado, home of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. We'll have it for you live on Tuesday night here on 97.3 ESPN. The MLB Home Run Derby, and Susie Hunter is there. She will be backpacking all around the country this summer for charity. We'll talk about that in a second, but you have been just kind of living the life in Colorado all week long. Have you just been kind of hunkered down in Denver the last couple days?
Yeah, I've been here for a little bit now. It's really cool. I cannot wait for the All-Star Game, but even more, I cannot wait for the Home Run Derby, and I'm so excited I get to be out here for this.
So you're going to all the events?
No, I don't think I'm going to all of the events, but I do have tickets for the All-Star Game and the Home Run Derby. Those were my priorities, and I'm going to play it by ear while I'm out here.
So obviously we've been following Susie all around because it's a great cause, number one. And number two, I think, you know how many people have come up to me asking, like, wishing they could do what you're doing. Like, that girl who comes on Fridays, how does she do it? I said, I don't know, man. I don't know how you took off from your job and basically just started doing this. And it's amazing to be able to go to every baseball stadium. You started up here in the Northeast, went to the New York stadiums, did Boston, Philly, obviously, Washington, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, down to Atlanta, Miami, Tampa Bay, 2 in Texas, one with the Rangers and Houston, and then now, boom, out to Colorado for the All-Star Game. So kind of give us a little bit about what your life has been like the last 2 months.
It's so weird. I live out of my car, basically. I don't sleep in my car, but I have bins with my stuff. I don't do suitcases. I just have like a bin for my clothes, a bin for my shoes, my hats, and like for toiletries. I have a bin for my camera gear. So like everything is just out of my car. So that's definitely weird for sure. But I've just been driving a ton and seeing the country in a way I've never seen it before. Yeah, it's driving with a side of baseball is what I've been calling it. But it's a weird life. It's a weird existence for
now,
sure.
What was the genesis of you deciding to do this? Because I know it's for a good cause, but what made you say, I want to raise money for the Boys and Girls Club, and I want to do it by visiting every baseball stadium? So kind of like, because this is something that, again, you don't know how many people have said to me, I would love to do this. And it's funny when I say, well, she's doing it in 1 year, 1 summer. And they're like, what? So what made you come up with this idea to do this?
Well, I've gotten the chance to work with the Boys and Girls Clubs in a few different capacities. I've covered them when I was a reporter. I love the work they do, so I wanted to do something special because this has been just such a crazy year for these kids. And, I mean, also when you think about it, these kids are, a little behind too when it comes to school because the past year doing everything online, that's really hard. In a lot of cases, kids are behind academically. They have programs that do, stuff with them after school, but they're also champions of youth sports. And this is so important for growing the game of baseball. And I love baseball more than probably anything. So I figured this would be a great way to raise money for them, but also do a major bucket list item.
So at what point did you say, I'm going to do this? I'm going to go, I'm going to get my map and just start mapping this out. Like, how long did you put into figuring out where, when, why, how you were going to do this?
Oh my gosh. It took me like 6 to 7 hours to map it out with all of the schedules and all of the driving time. It took forever to plan this out, but it's the kind of thing that you have to plan out because honestly, like this is going to take me until the end of September. So I really don't have that much, extra time by the time I finish it. But I always thought about doing something like this, but when I realized that it was a possibility, I started, talking about it, planning it in earnest. And then after I'd actually left my job and then realized that, the pandemic, things would be opening up a little bit more. I was like, this is the time we got to do it. this is when we got to do it.
So, okay, you just mentioned like you left your job. Like, there's no job for you when you go home. They're not like, hey, we want to let you do this. Like, you're done.
No, my contract was up, and I didn't want to renew it because I wanted to take a little break, spend time with family, because obviously during COVID, I was a reporter far away from my family, so I didn't see them for a really long time. So I'm like, okay, I need to go home and like hang out and catch up on what I've missed. And then I decided to just like keep the break going.
All right, so Susie Hunter's with us. We've been checking in with her on Fridays to kind of give you guys a little insight on these different ballparks, where she's been, where she's going. Now, we talked about the ones you've been to. So far, what would you say has been kind of the highlight or something about one of these ballparks, or maybe a couple of them, that just absolutely is like, wow, I got to see that. That was awesome, about the ballparks, because there's so many people who keep saying like, they love doing the ballpark tours. And it's like, when I go to these ballparks, what do I do? What do I see? Because like, I know when I went to Milwaukee, like there was like, when I walked in, it was like, you got to go check out this thing all these different places I have in my head of when people go to these ballparks, tell them where to go. So what are some things that have stood out about where you've been?
So I highly recommend getting a tour if you are able. When I started this, a lot of ballparks weren't doing tours yet, though. So that was a bummer. I would have liked to have gotten tours everywhere that I've gone. But I did get an awesome tour at Globe Life, home of the Texas Rangers. That brand new ballpark. That park is incredible. So many things go into making the fan experience amazing. So many things go into also maximizing how much money they're making off of those fans. But it's a masterpiece. It's such a cool park. It's super weird looking on the outside, but then when you get the tour inside, it is a modern marvel. It's so cool. So that was definitely a highlight for me for sure.
The ballpark tour is big. So once again, tell the listeners where they can donate, how they can donate, and where their donation is helping.
Yeah, so there's a landing page for all of my fundraiser efforts, thesusiehunter.com/MLB-road-trip. You can also find me on social media. I'm at thesusiehunter, but I'm trying to raise $30,000 for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Still got a lot to go. So I hope you guys, if you're hearing this, you can donate if you're able to. I would appreciate it. And the kids would too.
Yeah, thesusiehunter.com. Find her on all social media. All right, so what is the next couple of days going to be looking like? You've been out there, and now it's almost like here we are. It's happening. So what's the next couple of days like for you?
I'm full on squatting in Denver right now. Like, I'm just going to be here for another week and a half before I start heading to the Midwest. But the next couple of days, I've got some really fun shoots coming up, but also the day of the All-Star game, the Boys and Girls Club, they are ribbon cutting a newly renovated club out here. They did it in conjunction with the All-Star game festivities. So I'm going to visit that. I'll vlog that. I'll be able to show you guys what that looks like and where that donation money goes.
I think that Denver for the Home Run Derby is a great place to be, obviously. And then the All-Star game. They also have the draft going on, I guess, is tomorrow. There's a lot of buzz in this area because there's a lot of local players who may get drafted early in that first round. So it's a whole baseball weekend out there. Now, you mentioned you're kind of squatting there. Do you have friends in Denver? Do you know people out there? Have you been meeting people out? Everywhere you've gone, it seems like you have run into somebody.
I have a lot of friends in Denver, so I'm hanging out. My friends Ryan and Allie have a brand new apartment, so I have a room here right now.
Cool.
So maybe I'll stay forever. Who knows? It's great. It's great. I'm loving it. But I have a lot of friends out here because I used to cover the Rockies AA team, so I know a lot of people who work in sports out here. So they appreciate what I'm doing. So they've given me the space to take over for a little bit.
So All-Star games Tuesday, and then what?
I will be here for a little bit. I'm catching up on editing videos. I'm going to have a lot to do before I hit the road. But then after that, I will be driving to the Midwest, and that'll be the Midwest leg, which I'm really excited about because I haven't been to most of those ballparks. I've been to Minnesota, but other than that, they will all be brand new.
Are you double dipping? You go back to Minnesota?
I'm only planning on going once. I mean,
No. So
yeah,
you're going on this trip.
Absolutely. Even though, I've been to Coors Field, of course, but I'm going to go again because I'm doing all of them in one trip. So yeah, I will absolutely go back to Minnesota this year.
Man, we all envy it. This is fantastic. Check out the website, thesusiehunter.com, and all the information is up there. You can check out all her vlogs and blogs and videos and on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you can donate there as well. It's all for the Boys and Girls Club. Susie is road tripping across the East Coast all the way out west, every single Major League Baseball ballpark, and you can follow her along here on Fridays. We'll catch up with to see what she did all week long and what ballpark she hits during the course of the next week. Well, enjoy the Derby, enjoy the All-Star game and all the festivities, and the rest of your time in Denver, Susie.
Mike, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun, and we appreciate Susie Hunter raising money for the Boys and Girls Club. So thank you, Susie. And, of course, we'll check in with her on Friday of next week. Susie Hunter, everybody, here on the Sports Bash. And, again, she started this thing in New York. She went to 2 games in New York and then Boston and, back to Philly, Pittsburgh, Washington, Buffalo. But to get to go across the country and do the whole shebang is something that I know me and a lot of my friends and like people I've been running into, like, man, how awesome would that be? But the thing is, you can only do it for baseball. That's the uniqueness, like baseball, the ballpark. So just to, we talked about where she's been. Like, I've been to, how many ballparks have I been to now? So if I'm going through the list of ballparks, I have been to Baltimore. I have been to Yankee Stadium, both new and old. I have been to Toronto. I have been to the old Marlins, not the new Marlins. I have been to New York, Shea, but not City. I have been to Philly and Washington. I have been to White Sox. I have been to Cubs. I have been to Brewers. I have been to Pirates. I have been to Angels. I have been to Rangers. The new one, the old one, not the new one, which isn't even all that. The old one wasn't even all that old before they got a new one. I have been to Dodgers, and that's it. So the ones I have not gone to are San Fran, San Diego, Colorado, Arizona, Seattle, Oakland. I think I'll hold off on Oakland until they get a new one. Houston, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Minnesota, Kansas City, Detroit, Cleveland, and the new Citi Field, Tampa Bay, and Boston. I have not been to Boston. So of all of those that I have not been to, I'm the one that I would like to go to next. Like if I had the opportunity to go to a ballpark and pick up the ballpark tour and say, where's the one you would want to check out that you haven't been to yet? I think it would be San Diego or San Francisco. One of those two I think would be like, I want you guys to take out Boston, take out Chicago, right? Those two, everybody. Oh, what's your favorite ballpark? Chicago and Boston. Which ballpark is the one that someone should go to if they haven't been to yet? Like, what's your favorite ballpark that you've been to that you think is underrated, maybe? Because everybody says Boston and Chicago, even Camden Yards is high on that list. What's an underrated ballpark that people should check out? Because I actually really enjoyed the White Sox park. It's not like anything flashy or cool, but it had a lot of stuff to do there, and it's just underrated because no one ever says, hey, go check out the White Sox. Everyone always says go to Wrigley. I would say Dodger Stadium was a bit overrated. I didn't love Dodger Stadium. It's a pain in the ass to kind of get to. You can't change levels. It's kind of old. It's kind of dumpy, to be honest with you. Dodger Stadium was not great. Anaheim was just Even Texas, I didn't love. It wasn't like a great one. Now, she said last week that Texas was fantastic. Pittsburgh is really underrated. Not underrated. People think it's really good, but I think it's even better than people give it credit for. I liked Milwaukee a lot. Miller Park, it's called out there. I actually like the Nationals ballpark. So text in 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973 to which ballpark is underrated. A one that, hey, if you haven't been to this ballpark, you need to check it out. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN on a Happy Hour Friday. Don't forget the PT tonight for Happy Hour Friday. That's coming up. Also, Andrew DeCecco, our division previews continue. We'll go to the AFC West, check in on those 4 teams. And Bob Wankel on the Phils. That's coming up at 4:40 today here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And last night, the Suns went up 2-0. How did they do it? Well, I'll tell you next. All right, 20 after 3 on a Sports Bash Friday. Happy Hour Friday. Now, I've been asking people to try to find the Drake's Kickback for me. I'm wondering if anybody out there is able to help me find that. Drake's Kickback. That's the Happy Hour Friday brewski of the day. Cole from LBI, if you ever go to Citi Field, take notice of the original fence line. They moved the fences in and lowered them as well. Whoever designed Citi Field's dimensions hated home runs. Yeah, I know that one was deep, and then they moved it. Same with, it was always tough to hit in San Diego. The ballpark dimensions out there, I think they've changed a little bit to make it a little bit more hitter-friendly. That was a big pitcher's park as well. Citi Field, one of them out there that is difficult to hit home runs in. The whole ballpark trip, like, she's getting to do this is unbelievable. Now, I don't know, it would be great to just be able to kind of have the finances to do that and just kind of backpack across the country. She's raising money for charity. And obviously, this is a situation where if you just were able to do this, like if this is just something like this is one of those dreams for a lot of people out there, right? I think this is one of the coolest things to do. It's just like, oh my God, you get to go to every single ballpark and do it all summer long, not having to work, like not having to report to anybody, not have to check in with anybody, not having to do anything like that. Like that's what makes it really cool. It's like that element of it, which is like, wow, you don't have to work. It's like a vacation. That's pretty neat. Now, somebody texted about Citi Field. What ballpark is your favorite ballpark that you've ever been to or visited? What's an underrated one, I should say? I don't want your favorite. What's an underrated one? Like, which underrated ballpark is something? Because she's, by the way, getting to go to the All-Star game, Coors Field. That one's pretty cool. I think also if you look at, as I said, Miller Park before, that one's pretty cool. What other one did I mention that's like, if you get to check it out? Chicago White Sox. Yeah, the Chicago White Sox one is one that I don't think a lot of people really, think about because you go to Chicago, you want to go see the Wrigley Field. But I think White Sox is pretty cool as well. So if you get a chance to go out there, check that out. But let me know which ballpark is your most underrated kind of favorite one that you've ever been to. 609-403-0973. All right, a lot of messages over in the video stream that we want to get to. By the way, Kyle says Brian Colangelo traded Bridges. No, that was Brett Brown. Yeah, that was Brett Brown who was in charge of the Sixers at that point. Brian Colangelo had been let go for the Burnergate situation, and Brett Brown, if you remember, was the interim GM at that time, and Brett was the one who we think was in control that basically pulled the trigger on that trade. And look, for as much as I don't blame Brett Brown for all of the issues that the Sixers has as a coach, I can certainly say that Brett did not do a good job as the general manager of the team making that deal, right? When you make that deal, in hindsight now, it is not a good deal. Like, you give up Bridges for Zaire Smith. I was trying to think of his name. He was that bad. He's out of the league. I mean, think about that. The guy's out of the league. So you want to rank, like that's one of the rankings you can go back and do, is go back and check out which moves the Sixers missed on. There was a ton of them. That one there, though, has to be probably at the top of the list. It's one of the things that you look back off and say, wow, they really botched this. Like, that you're going to botch stuff. It happens. Like, you're going to get guys wrong in the draft. You're going to take guys that are bust. You're going to take guys that just don't end up working out for you. But that one there is one that you're like, man, was it necessary? Did you have to trade? Look, and we talked about this earlier. I think they did it to get the draft pick. They were so enamored with draft pick. But the weird part about that is it was Brett Brown who made the trade, not like Sam Hinkie. I can understand if Sam Hinkie was still running the team and he wanted to get more draft picks, and like he was valuing that. But the fact that the coach of the team, that's the odd part, is the coach of the team was the one that essentially went out there and made the picks. The coach of the team, who normally would want to get the team better, now goes out there and essentially makes a pick for the future. You know, it's like, wow, the coach who usually is in win now mode made a trade that was sent. Now, that's the thing, though. I got to go back to, did they make the trade because they thought Zaire Smith was better, or did they make the trade because they valued the pick? Right? That's one I'll never know. Because they take Bridges. It's a great story. Villanova, his mom works for the team. You guys know the story, right? You guys know the story. They trade him on draft night. He gets moved for Zaire Smith and the pick. Okay, great. So in the end, did they want Zaire Smith that bad, or did they want the pick? See, I seem to think that it was more about the pick than it was for Smith. But let's take a look real quick. All right. What was now Smith was another of the, you talk about the Sixers and their wonky injuries and stuff. Zaire Smith had all sorts of weird injury issues as well. Didn't he have like the peanut allergy, if you remember that? He lost all that weight. So the way that draft went, that was the draft that DeAndre Ayton was number 1. Bagley went 2. Can you imagine? All right, Phoenix took Ayton number 1. Okay, he's turned into a pretty good player. You took Bagley number 2. Luka Doncic went number 3. Memphis took Jaren Jackson number 4. Trae Young went number 5. Like, Jaren Jackson's been okay. He's not like a bust. But Doncic and Young and Ayton are the, boom. Now, Mo Bamba went 6, and he's been a bust, I would say, right? Would you call Bamba a bust? He is going down that road. Wendell Carter Jr., I wouldn't say is memorable. Colin Sexton's been pretty good at number 8. Kevin Knox, who was the guy that I liked, by the way, at number 9. I don't even know if he's still playing. I mean, what are the Knicks doing with him? My God. I did like Knox, so he went 9. Then the Sixers had the 10th pick, and they went with Bridges. So now you got Bridges. Now you can make an argument that you should have just kept Bridges. You could make another argument that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was right there for you at number 11, number 10. You can make another argument the guy that I wanted that night was Michael Porter Jr. And if the Sixers just took Michael Porter Jr. at number 10, how different would they be? If they just took Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at number 10 and just kept them, how different would they be? Instead, they take Bridges. Fine. Okay, you got Bridges. So Bridges goes 10, Alexander goes 11, Miles Bridges goes 12, Jerome Robinson goes 13, Michael Porter Jr. goes 14, Troy Brown goes 15, and I'm imagining you tell Phoenix to draft Zaire Smith because that's the guy you want. So it's almost like now they also got to pick the first round pick, but did they tell Phoenix, hey, draft Zaire Smith, that's the guy we want? I would imagine that's what happened, right? I would imagine they said, hey, that's who we want. Draft him for us. Because the next pick is Dante DiVincenzo, who has helped out Milwaukee, and I think they're hurting without him right now. 2 picks after that is Kevin Huerter, who torched you for 27 points in Game 7. So either one of those 2 guys is certainly better than the guy you zoned in on. So even if you traded Mikal Bridges, you messed up the player that you told Phoenix to take for you. That's where you should be. Look, fine. Zaire Smith, Mikal Bridges, you like. He's turned into a nice player. But you make the trade to get the pick because that's what you want. You could have at least told him to take a better player than Zaire Smith. That's the problem. There's a bunch of guys, too. I mean, Kevin Huerter goes 19. You take Zaire Smith 16. DiVincenzo goes 17. Landry Shamet, you took at 26. Heck, even if you got him, you'd be better. That trade and that whole situation there was a complete disaster. A complete disaster it's turned out to. And it's because Zaire Smith can't play. And he never could play. Right? Couldn't play, can't play. So turns into a completely failed situation. And now it doesn't help that Mikal Bridges is out there in the NBA Finals scoring 27 points. That doesn't help your cause either. But to go back to the genesis of the conversation, Kyle Dubray, it was not Brian Colangelo who made that pick. It was Brett Brown. And by the way, Brett Brown not qualified to be the general manager. But this is what happens when you ran Sam Hinkie out of town to put nepotism Brian Colangelo in charge. Total disaster. He was horrible, but I can't blame him for this. But because you had to get rid of a second general manager within another, 2-year span, you had nobody to run the team, so you handed it over to your coach. Coach not qualified to be the GM of the team, makes a terrible trade. And then they hired Elton Brand. So you're on your fifth general manager. Well, you're not really on your fifth general manager, but you kind of are. I mean, you had Hinkie, who was the GM and president of the team. You had Colangelo, who replaced Hinkie. And then Colangelo got booted, and you had Brett Brown running the team general manager role. And then you hire Brand. And now you have Morey, who essentially oversees Brand, even though Brand's still the GM of the team. If you followed me there. Right? Gotcha. What else we got here? I got some people that Kyle Davis is checking in. He says, maybe they thought that Smith and Bridges were similar enough that the pick made them feel like they had a steal. Oh, I think that's for sure what they felt, Kyle. I think they felt Zaire Smith was an athletic wing. If you remember that draft, when did it happen? It happened the year after they lost to the Celtics in the playoffs. What happened in that playoff? They didn't have any wing defenders, right? Remember? The Celtics winged them to death. They had no wing defenders. So I think the Sixers saw Zaire Smith as a wing defender. They had Robert Covington. They had Ben Simmons. They needed more wing defenders. That was all they had in the series against Boston. And they're thinking, look, Boston's going to be here. So we have to build a team to beat Boston. So they went out and tried to get a wing defender. That's what they did. They needed to get a wing defender. And remember that offseason, they went out and traded for Wilson Chandler. Oh, man, who else did they get in that offseason? But they went out and tried to get wing defenders. That was what they made that deal for. They tried to get guys to defend Jason Tatum, Brown, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, all those wings that Boston had on that 2018 team. The Sixers had no one to defend them. They pick and rolled them to death. So they had to go out and say, all right, we need to find, and what was Zaire Smith supposed to be? He was supposed to be an elite wing defender. He was an athletic guy, and he had a shot that they thought that they can work with. Everybody thinks they can work with everybody's shot, right? Hey, just get him in here. We'll work with his shot. But he's going to be a good wing defender. And that did not work out. By the way, at Texas Tech, he shot 45% from three. But he was just not a big scorer there. And he was drafted based on the fact they thought he could play wing defense. But so to go back to the Kyle Davis comment, and he commented back again. He said, that's true. I did see Smith play for the Blue Coats, and his athleticism was eye-catching in person. Oh, there's no doubt Zaire Smith had tons of athleticism, but if you remember, he had all this wonkiness that happened to him. He had the peanut allergy that we talked about. He had a Jones fracture in his foot, so he missed time. So he has the Jones fracture. Then a month later, he comes back, and he has to get the whole he had some sort of procedure done because he had the allergic reaction. And yeah, and then I think he had a wrist problem too at some point, but couldn't stay on the court. And I think that set him back, and he just wasn't a good shooter, and yada, yada, yada. He's out of the league. Yeah, yada, yada over the best part. No, I mentioned he was a good defender. I mean, come on, man. He couldn't play. He couldn't play. But yes, you're right, Kyle Davis. He was very athletic. What else we got here? Adam is watching on Facebook. Adam says, Philly fans are like star athletes. You have to tell them they're right, stroke their ego about how much they know about sports. Make sure you let them know they matter. And if you don't, they'll ask you to get traded. Yep. I mean, look, the Philly fans are great. I don't agree with Mike so much that they're the same in every place. Yeah, every town, every major city has their passionate group of fans. I feel like in the Northeast, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, it's a little bit more extreme than other places. This is back to the conversation we were having with Mike McGarry, I'm imagining. Adam goes on to say, Philly fans, Danny Green is a respected vet and is the glue that held this team together. Also, Philly fans, Danny Green doesn't know anything. I don't know that Philly fans said that Danny Green was a well-respected vet and the glue that held this team together, because I said they missed him in the Atlanta series big time, and a lot of Sixer fans wanted him off the court because he had like 3 bad shooting games, and I didn't agree with that at all. I thought they missed him a lot in the Atlanta series. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We're brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan, the all-new Matt Blatt, now open, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, online, mattblattnissan.com. Happy Hour Friday with the PT. I'm still on the elusive search. Who out there is going to help me find my Happy Hour Friday IPA of the day? It's Drake's Kickback, man. Somebody find it for me. Drake's Kickback. If you know where I can get it, you got to let me know, because I've been looking and I can't find it. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. It is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Download it wherever you get your apps in the App Store. right, 3:43, yes. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN on a Friday. Happy Hour Friday. Pete Thompson tonight at 5 o'clock. I anticipate having a little fun with PT today. I know PT texts me about his favorite ballpark. What's yours that you've ever been to? Not your favorite, most underrated. A ballpark that we should all check out that maybe, hey, you've never been to Minnesota or you've never been to Cleveland or you've never been here. I love the ballpark tour. Our friend Susie Hunter has been backpacking around. She's living out of her car. She needs your help. Donate to the Boys and Girls Club. Go to thesusiehunter.com and tell us what ballpark. I'm also on the search for the elusive Happy Hour Friday IPA of the day. It's a Drake's Kickback, man. Who can find the Drake's Kickback for me? Where is my IPA posse? I'm Mike Gill, Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just search 973 ESPN on a Happy Hour Friday. And don't forget, coming up at 4, it's Football at 4 with Andrew DeCecco. You know, they did the rankings today for safety. We've been going through these executive, coaches, players, scouts. They've been ranking. They asked 50 players, executive coaches, scouts, etc., to rank the top 50 players. The top 10 players at 11 different positions. Today was the safety position. And I will give you the teaser on this. No Eagle made it. So there was no Rodney McLeod and there was no Anthony Harris that made this list. Now, we've been looking inside the NFC East to see who the top safeties are, each player at each position. Now, the Eagles did have a corner yesterday. They had Darius Slay at number 9. They had an interior lineman, Fletcher Cox, number 5. And they did not have a linebacker, and they did not have a defensive end, or an edge rusher, I guess that they're called. So they did not have an edge rusher. They had an interior lineman. They had no off-ball linebacker. They did have a corner, and they do not have a safety. The number 1 safety was Minkah Fitzpatrick of Pittsburgh. He was the number 1. Now, remember, they got him in a deal with Miami. And that move really, I think Pittsburgh at the time was like a 500 team where they were kind of out of it. And they went and made that trade. And Fitzpatrick has just been amazing. He's turned into the best safety in all of football. I think they traded him for like a second-round pick, too, if memory serves. But it's really turned out to be a great move for him. He was the number 1 ranked safety in football. Justin Simmons was number 2 from Denver. Budda Baker, number 3 from Arizona. Number 4 was Jamal Adams from Seattle. Number 5, Harrison Smith from Minnesota. Tyrann Mathieu from Kansas City, number 6. Kevin Byard, number 7 from Tennessee. John Johnson III from Cleveland, number 8. Derwin James Jr., number 9 from the Chargers. And number 10 was Jesse Bates III from the Cincinnati Bengals. And the honorable mentions were Eddie Jackson, Chicago, Darnell Savage from Green Bay, Marcus May from the Jets, Marcus Williams from the Giants was one of 2 NFC East safeties that made the honorable mention list. Antoine Winfield Jr. from Tampa Bay was next, and then Landon Collins from the Washington football team was the last one. So no Eagle, obviously, and I'm not surprised. Like, I didn't think Anthony Harris was going to make the list. Rodney McLeod, I thought maybe could have got a receiving vote. You did not see him make the list. Of course, you didn't see Malcolm Jenkins make the list either. So they basically said, look, the safety spot. So we've gone through the defense now. They're going to do the offensive line tomorrow, and they're going to do tackles tomorrow. They're going to do interior offensive linemen on Sunday. And then next week they'll start with quarterbacks, running backs, wideouts, and tight ends. But here's the thing. You're looking around the NFC East. There are not many players on defense that have made these lists. There was one edge rusher. There was I think 2 interior defensive linemen. Fletcher Cox was the highest, and I think Leonard Williams from the Giants was there. The one edge rusher was Chase Young from Washington. There was not a linebacker. The only corner that made the list was Darius Slay, and nobody had a safety either. So there's not a lot. I'm a little surprised because Washington's defense, I think, is very good. The fact that they only have one guy in the top 10. Now, they have had a couple honorable mentions. Washington has. They have an honorable mention safety. I think they had an honorable mention corner. They do have an edge rusher. But that kind of tells me that there's not a lot of good defense in the NFC East. We know the Eagles' defense is just meh, including until they figure out what they're going to do at the cornerback position across from Darius Slay. But the defense in the NFC, there hasn't been a Dallas player, I don't think, on any of the lists. I don't think there's been a Dallas player even as an honorable mention, maybe one. I might have forgotten one Dallas player as an honorable mention, but I don't think so. I can't think of a Dallas player that I forgot. Now that they've gone through all the defense, I do not think a Dallas player made the top 10 at all. There was, let's go to the corners. I'm almost 100% positive they don't have a corner on the list, but let me just double check. I know they had Byron Jones. No, Washington had a corner and so did New York. So Dallas did not have a player on there. They did not have a player at safety or corner. Did they have a linebacker? Now, Micah Parsons obviously is a rookie, so he would not be on this list. Dallas did not have a linebacker, so they had no linebacker, no safety, no corner. Now, this isn't that big of a deal. I mean, they could have they don't have a top 10 guy, and they also don't have the honorable mention player. So you're looking at, they don't have a top 15 player at any spot on the field on the defensive side of the ball. Isn't that strange? New York and Washington have a bunch of honorable mention players. They don't have top 10 level players. The only team in the division that had multiple top 10 players, just going off the top of my head memory, though, is Philadelphia. They had Fletcher Cox at number 5, and they had Darius Slay at number 9. Now, what does that suggest? Nothing, really. Just kind of find it odd. There's a devoid of talent in the NFC East on the defensive side of the ball. I think we can go with that. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. A happy hour Friday with you. So take a look at that over the weekend. We'll do that on Monday. We'll take a look at now, I would imagine the Eagles will have Lane Johnson as a tackle. The interior line, I would think, has Brandon Brooks, even though those guys got hurt last year. I think you'll see Lane Johnson come in at like 8 or 9. And I think Brandon Brooks will be interesting because he didn't play last year. If, years past, he'd probably be 1, 2, or 3 on this list. Now, it's all interior linemen, so you're including right guards, left guards, and centers. So maybe Brandon Brooks is like more towards the end. If not, he'll probably be an honorable mention, I would imagine. And then next week, the quarterbacks, you're not going to get one of those. Running backs, we mentioned Sanders might get honorable mention. Wide receivers, you're not getting one. And the tight ends, it'll be interesting to see if they give you Ertz, Goddard, or both. Right? Ertz, Goddard, or both. I think that you got to put Ertz on. I mean, even though he had a bad year last year, I still imagine that the executive, the scouts, and the players still think that he offers something, right? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously the Sixers, the Eagles, I should say, can't get anything for him. I do want to play something here. Real quick, I think, yep, I just got the Phillies starting lineup. All right, so let me throw this out for you. Segura's leading off. Real Muto's batting second. Harper is the DH tonight. He's hitting third. McCutcheon's in left. Miller is in right field, so I figured they would keep Miller in the lineup again after last night. Hoskins is hitting sixth. DD is hitting seventh. Bohm is hitting eighth. And Jankowski is in the lineup again, and he is hitting ninth. So Segura, Realmuto, Harper, McCutcheon, Miller, Hoskins, Gregorius, Bohm, Jankowski, the Phillies tonight. Velasquez gets the start on the mound, and he is facing Garrett Richards. So that's your lineup for the Phils tonight in Boston as they try to get the first one here of the 3-game set against the Bo Sox there. Also, what else was on the list of things that I had to say today? Kelsey, not top 10 center. It's not top 10 centers. It is top 10 interior linemen. So will Kelsey be a top 10 interior lineman? He would be on the list of top 10 centers, but I don't think he would make top 10 interior linemen. You're including all the guards, both left and right, and all the centers. So why he's probably a top 7 center. I don't think he's top 10 interior offensive lineman. I think Brandon Brooks is going to be on that list, though. So I'll check that out. It comes out tomorrow. You can go to our website, 973ESPN.com. We'll probably have a story popped up on that. So check it out on that. Now, we have the story up. Darius Slay was named one of the top 10 corners entering. Now, this is entering 2021, not the guys who they think will be the maybe top 10 this year, but entering 2021. Because somebody tweeted at me yesterday about, well, we know Slay wasn't as good last year. Maybe he wasn't, but they still, people around the league. Look, we remember the 8 plays that he gets burned on. You remember the other, he has like another 1,000 that he plays. Yeah, he got burned on some plays. Everybody does. Ramsey gets burnt every now and then. We remember the bad that stick out. Slay had a bad game against DK Metcalf. We act like that was every play of every game for him. I assure you, Slay was not as good as he was in Detroit. He wasn't as bad as you think he was. But disappointing nonetheless. We hoped that you were getting a guy that was shutting down the other team's number ones. Well, the whole team was bad. And I think it just carried over to him. He didn't have a lot of help, as the scouts said in that thing. They didn't use him very well. All right, more on our website, 973ESPN.com. Football at 4 is on the way. Coming up, we will take a look as we continue a look at the AFC West. We continue our divisional previews. Denver, Kansas City, Vegas, Los Angeles. Very interesting division, of course, with the Chiefs at the top. But who else is a contender? Find out next. Football and 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets. Go to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Andrew, to check those back, we've been having a lot of fun diving in on the divisions. AFC West today, where the Kansas City Chiefs reside, a Super Bowl contender. Any others in the division? We'll talk to Andrew about that. We'll start off with maybe, Andrew, one of the more interesting teams in the NFL this year. It's the Denver Broncos, who many people feel have a pretty good roster. It's just all about the quarterback position, and that might be one of the more interesting battles in any NFL camp this year. Drew Lock against Teddy Bridgewater.
Neither option is very enticing when you look at it, but, I mean, look at what Drew Lock did last year. He had 57% completion percentage, only 6.6 yards per attempt. I mean, that's just unacceptable considering the weapons that he had. Yes, he didn't have Cortland Sutton there all season. He's his big possession, big-bodied receiver. But he did have Jerry Jeudy. He did have Tim Patrick, who came on last season, who I think is a very underrated wide receiver. I believe he led all pass catchers on that offense with 6 touchdowns. And the offensive line around him was decent, but you had guys like Noah Fant and all these different pieces around him to be successful. And he never really took that next step. So that's a little concerning. Then when you look at who's in contention with him for that job, you have Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a stabilizing presence, but I don't necessarily know that he's someone that's going to take that offense and steer them into the promised land, so to speak.
Yep, that'll be one to keep an eye on. Lock versus Bridgewater. Of course, they made a trade to get Bridgewater. Does that, in your mind, it's interesting. You make a trade for one guy, you draft another guy in the first round. Who gets a higher, a possibility to start based on we traded for you or we drafted you so high?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Drew Lock's going to have going to get the nod early on, but I also think that his stranglehold on that top spot is tentative at best. I think that they're going to give Teddy Bridgewater a fair amount of snaps with the first team as well. And, I think that's going to be one of those battles that sort of is figured out at the very end of August. And behind him, you have Brett Rippon, who played some last year as well. So obviously they didn't like enough of what they saw for him to be a viable option to contend with Drew Lock. So, I mean, he's there as well, and he has some NFL snaps. So they have a lot of experience in that room. So we'll see how it shakes out.
All right, let's see what kind of weapons whoever the quarterback will have. Melvin Gordon behind him. They'll also have Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, as you mentioned. Jerry Jeudy was a high pick last year. KJ Hamler, also a draft choice. Noah Fant, pretty good tight end, pass catcher. So
Javonte Williams, the running back there in the second round, he's a phenomenal talent.
Yep, and you mentioned the fact they had Patrick in there, but Hamler was the Penn State kid. Font, they do have some weapons for whoever the quarterback of this team is.
Yeah, and that's exactly why it makes them an intriguing team. However, I'm not sold on either quarterback being that guy that's going to be able to maximize the talent that he has at his disposal. So I think that the offensive pieces are going to be very enticing, but I don't know that they're going to be able to. They're not going to be best served with either player that's probably going to be under center.
Offensive line always underappreciated, but a big factor. Does whoever wins this quarterback, will they get good protection?
It's going to be all right. It's pretty much lukewarm. I mean, they have Garrett Bowles, Dalton Reisner from a couple of drafts ago. I believe it was the 2019 draft. He's there as a guard. Bobby Massey, right tackle, is a mess. I think that they have Lloyd Cushenberry from USC. He's their center. He was their third-round pick last season. So they do have some young talent there and some formidable pieces there. It's certainly not one of the worst offensive lines that you're going to see. So, I mean, yeah, it's competent enough for them to have some success.
All right, over on the defense, Denver's been pretty good on that side of the ball. It won them a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I say a couple of years ago because it seems like it was such a long time ago, but a lot of that crew is gone. Von Miller, Kyle Fuller, Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons. They do have Ronald Darby as well. They've got some interesting names on the defensive side of the ball. Bradley Chubb, by the way.
Yeah, some of their key players that they have on defense are going to be very disruptive. I think Bradley Chubb is an ascending pass rusher in this league. Josie Jewell is a solid, tough linebacker, doesn't move particularly well laterally, but I think he's more of a thumper there. I believe if you're a Penn State fan, he gave them trouble. He played for Iowa. Patrick Surtain, you mentioned, is there. Von Miller is still playing at a high level. Doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. Justin Simmons is a tremendous player in the middle of that defense on the back end as their free safety, And Kyle Fuller is a solid right corner. You mentioned Ronald Darby. Ronald Darby sort of bounced around a little bit. I had a lot of promise in him when he was with the Buffalo Bills, but he really, between health and just inconsistencies on the field, I don't know that he really gives them a boost or moves the needle at all. But, yeah, he's there as well.
All right, over to Vegas, who was interesting. John Gruden, of course, a much ballyhooed head coaching hire over there. Derek Carr, it always seems like, will he stay? Will he go? Are they happy with him here? Mariota, the backup. How do you look at Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota for John Gruden this year?
Well, I think Derek Carr is going to win that job coming out of camp. I think is he a flashy quarterback? Is he somebody that many people hold in very high regard when they look at some of the premier quarterbacks in this league? No, but he is an adequate enough arm to sort of elevate that offense and take advantage of the pieces that are around him. I think he's a much better quarterback than Marcus Mariota. I think he's a much more well-rounded quarterback than Marcus Mariota, and I think he's going to win that job pretty clearly and decisively by the end of camp.
All right, Josh Jacobs, I like him a lot at running back. Kenyon Drake, Jalen Richard. They've got Theo Riddick, too, as their fourth guy. So they've got some names in the backfield. Henry Ruggs, they drafted pretty high. Renfro, John Brown, Willie Snead has been a guy who was productive a couple of years ago, but really Waller is the piece. You're hoping Ruggs takes a big step. Waller, what do the weapons look like?
Yeah, Waller had almost 1,200 yards last season. When he's a do-it-all tight end, when you look at him, he's much what I envision Kyle Pitts with the Atlanta Falcons. I think he can do some similar things to just like Darren Waller can. He really is their top receiver. When you look at the guys who they have in Henry Ruggs, I know a lot of Eagles fans were enamored with him in the draft last year, but he, to me, always struck me as somebody like a specialist, a specialty type player, not necessarily, I use the term target monster. I don't view him as that at all. He played in 13 games last season. He got about 43 targets, 400 yards, I think, only 2 touchdowns. He's not going to be a red zone guy. He's more of a big play guy. And I think that when you look at a player who I do think is going to really step up this year on the receiving core, it's Brian Edwards from South Carolina. He has a lot of injuries. He had a knee injury that kept him out of the Senior Bowl. He had a foot fracture at the days before the combine that kept him out of that. But he still was a third-round pick, big-bodied guy, can run pretty well, but he can be that possession guy, go up and get in the red zone. And I think he's going to take a big step forward. They gradually brought him along last season, so I think he's going to be a factor. And Hunter Renfrow over the middle is a very secure option for Derek Carr. He's not somebody that's going to be a big catch-and-run guy, but he's somebody that's going to get those first downs and move those chains over the middle. I think he averages just under 12 yards a catch, so he's kind of in the similar mold to Greg Ward, sure-handed guy and someone that quarterbacks have a lot of confidence in. He was third on their team in targets last year, so there's a lot of trust built there in Hunter Renfrow.
All right, good stuff on the offense. Their defense has some names. Ngakwe's a guy that Eagle fans heard a lot about a couple of years ago when he was on the trade block. Corey Littleton, Casey Hayward Jr., Jonathan Abram, a safety. A lot of people would love to have a safety like him here. Sealand Farrell as well. So can the Raiders' defense be a strength?
I think so. I think they can. However, they have Sealand Farrell there on the defensive line. And when he was drafted, he was a player that I really liked, but I didn't think he was going to be a double-digit sack guy. He's kind of like a Derek Barnett. And I think he only has maybe just under, I think he has 6.5 sacks if I'm remembering this right. But you have a guy who plays behind him, Max Crosby, who I like very much. And in 32 games, he has 17 sacks in comparison with Sealand Farrell's 26 games. So, I mean, Max Crosby's more of an undersized edge rusher that you don't want to, like a Josh Sweat, that you don't want to put in and have him take on 50 snaps a game because he sort of loses his effectiveness. But I think that he's a much better pass rusher and adds a lot more to the position than Sealand Farrell. But Sealand Farrell is a good run defender. And then you mentioned Yannick Ngakoue, of course. he's going to be a force coming off the edge there. And Malcolm Kuntz from Buffalo, who they drafted in the 3rd round as a player who I really liked in the draft. And I think he's going to provide some good depth there and sub packages as well with Max Crosby. And then when you look at the second level, I think their linebackers are pretty stable. They're not super athletic. They don't move particularly well. They're not necessarily in the mold of the prototypical NFL linebacker. But I do like their backups. They're very young in the backup area there, but they have a lot of players who I was really high on in the draft, and either last year or this year. And Divine Diablo is an oversized safety from Virginia Tech who's going to be playing linebacker. Tanner Muse from Clemson was an oversized safety that they converted to linebacker. And Javin White from he's a player who I believe was in East West Shrine Bowl, or he was in the collegiate All-Star game after one of the big ones. But he's a player that I really like as well. So they're in pretty good shape there.
Andrew Checo, football 4. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that seems to have injury problems. They find ways to lose games, but it seems that they have found their quarterback to replace Phillip Rivers and Justin Herbert, and I would anticipate you're thinking about a big year for him.
Yeah, I think Justin Herbert is going to have a monster season, and quite frankly, the pieces are there for him to do so, and I think he's going to continue his upward trajectory and become a star this season. And some of the weapons, I mean, I think adding Rashawn Slater at left tackle was such a pivotal move for that franchise to protect their franchise quarterback. And we mentioned a team last time we spoke about, the Bengals, that didn't do that. And I think the Chargers are building the team the right way. And Keenan Allen's still there. Mike Williams is still there. They don't have a speed guy, really. I mean, Josh Palmer was somebody from Tennessee. He went to the University of Tennessee. He was drafted in the 3rd round. I think he can be that. I don't know that he has the top-end speed that you really need to stretch a team vertically consistently, but he can certainly do that. So he's going to be there. Jared Cook is also there at tight end. That's right. They lost Hunter Henry. Jared Cook, I believe, is on his 4th team in 5 years. So he's bounced around a little bit. He's a journeyman, but he's a veteran that knows how to get open and has caught some big passes in his career, and it's going to be another red zone presence to help out his quarterback. So you have to like what they have there. And then the dual running backs that they have, you have the thunder and lightning approach with Austin Eckler, the pass receiver, and then you have the guy who can be between the tackles grinder and Justin Jackson. So it's a very well-rounded offense.
Yeah, and also Rashawn Slater, they drafted to play left tackle. Corey Linsley's a good safety. Brian Balaga at right tackle. Their line should be better than it's been if they can stay healthy. You flip over to defense. This is where they're scary, man. They've had some names over here, Bosa, Tillery, Joseph. Obviously, they have not been able to stay healthy. Derwin James at safety. This could be the strength of their team, even with all the names you just mentioned on offense.
Yeah, they've just been snake bitten. They've been one of those teams that just year after year they have the guys to get it done, but for one reason or another, a key piece on that defense gets hurt, and then it sort of snowballs. But nevertheless, what they have right now, you have Linval Joseph, you have Joey Bosa, who I think could take the pass rush crown this season. He's that good. You mentioned Tillery. You mentioned Kaiser White, the linebacker. He was an oversized safety at West Virginia, your alma mater. He was more of a oversized safety that they converted to linebacker, which you're seeing more and more in today's NFL. I really like what he can do there. And then Derwin James is possibly my favorite defensive player in the NFL. He's a do-it-all safety, rangy, big, athletic, flies all over the field, closes on the ball exceptionally well. And then his running mate, Nasir Adderley, was a safety from Delaware who I really like, but he needs to stay healthy as well. So the pieces are there, Michael. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting teams to watch this year. They've had so many injury problems. Can they stay healthy, and can they keep pace with Kansas City? Let's flip over to them. Obviously, the AFC champions, the runner-up, the Super Bowl champions from 2 years ago, and it's all Patrick Mahomes, of course, who runs this show. But, man, he's got a lot of fun weapons, and I guess continuity is key for them.
Yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs are a well-oiled machine now. It's his old hat. Just like you said, continuity is big. They have Tyreek Hill, you have DeMarcus Robinson, you have Mecole Hardman. You have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think is going to take a big step forward in his second season. Travis Kelce is obviously a dominant tight end. I mean, and Mahomes is playing he's the best quarterback in football. So, I mean, what do you do to stop that offense if you're in the AFC West? I have no idea.
Not a lot of great game plans have shut them down. They've kind of tinkered their offensive line, too, after a rough night at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think to me one of the key draft picks in the entire draft was adding Creed Humphrey in the second round. I mean, that was a steal in the second round first and foremost. I thought he could have been their final pick at the end of the first round, but they have Austin Blythe there as well. Creed Humphrey is going to be a starter immediately. Austin Blythe is an undersized guy that kind of gets pushed around a lot, can play center or guard, but I think Creed Humphrey is going to be the guy there. Joe Thuney's there. Kyle Long is there. Mike Renners is there. They have the guys there now, and now it won't be Patrick Mahomes running for his life. Now there's guys there that can get the job done and have that offense running like a well-oiled machine.
It should be interesting on offense to see if they can continue to ascend. They've been one of the best offenses that we've ever watched over the last couple of years. We just talked about the continuity they have. Then on defense, Chris Jones, one of the best. They get good pass rush from Frank Clark. Nick Bolton was the guy we talked a lot about at the draft. Mathau is one of the better safeties in football. But is this the Achilles heel of the team?
I think so, particularly at cornerback. But when you look at how they're built, I really like their defensive lineman and Chris Jones. He's, like you said, he's one of the best. I think he can do it all from the interior. Frank Clark is a good pass rusher. Jaron Reed, who they added, is another good guy along the interior who can be a force and collapse the pocket. I really like what they can do. The linebacker situation, they have two players who are really young, but I really think that what they bring to the table, their skill set, really translates to the current NFL landscape. And Nick Bolton, who they just drafted, and Willie Gay last year, tremendously athletic, very fast, rangy sideline-to-sideline linebacker. You mentioned the safeties in Tyrann Mathieu. Juan Thornhill is a ball hawk, and he needs to stay healthy as well. But he can do that's as good a safety tandem as you'll find in the NFL. However, when you get to the secondary and you look at the cornerback situation, that could be what holds them back or gives them a little bit of trouble this year.
All right. Will they have trouble in this AFC West, though? Are they the clear favorite, I would imagine? But if someone challenges them, which of the three do you like?
Yeah, they're the clear-cut favorite, Mike, but if somebody were to challenge them, I would say it would be the Chargers.
Chargers should be fun. I do agree with that. I think they're one of those sneaky teams this year. If they can stay healthy, as you said, snake bitten, I think that's a good word. So rank the four all and over in all. How entering training camp do you see the AFC West?
Well, I have the Chiefs as the class of the AFC West. And then I have the Chargers. And at 3, it's interesting because I had a conversation with my friend Matt and Paul, who are big Raiders fans, and I told them I graded them out, kind of gave them a 10-7 record going into training camp. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to have them slotted at the 3rd spot, and then 4th is going to be the Denver Broncos. They have a lot of shiny weapons to work with. I just don't think they have the quarterback to get it done.
Interesting. Denver is a team that, as I think we both said, has a good roster, but you just said it. Do they have the quarterback to get it done? Well, we'll find out at training camp when that opens in about less than 3 weeks now, man. We're almost there. And next week, when Andrew's back for Football at 4, we will get into the NFC side of things. We'll be at the NFC West on Tuesday, and then Andrew will be back for the NFC South on Friday. And then the following week, it'll be the North and the East, and then by that time, we will be into Eagles training camp. Can you believe it's here, man?
Yeah, it really crept up really fast this year. It's exciting.
All right, Andrew DeCecco, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Check out all their stuff over at InsideTheBirds.com and get it wherever you get your podcast. Andrew, have a great weekend, man.
You too, Mike. Be safe.
All right, I've enjoyed these Inside the Birds look at the divisions, and Andrew well-versed deep in all of these teams, and I like Kansas City as well. Obviously, I do agree the Chargers are a team that I would have at number 2. If another team makes the playoffs in that division, the Denver-Kansas City thing, the Denver-Vegas thing, like Vegas last year I thought was better than I had thought. I think the Gruden hire was just a mess. He's just been average. He hasn't made a big impact for that team. Can he make an impact for that team this year? 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We got plenty more to do, including, do you remember, yes, this day, July the 9th. What happened on this day? And, by the way, it's a happy hour Friday, which means it's a Do You Remember weekend. Oh, yeah. And I am disappointed in my listeners today. I thought by now someone would have found the Drake's Kickback for me somewhere. There's liquor stores all over South Jersey. Somebody can find Drake's Kickback for me. Somebody can find it. So far, I'm wrong. Josh says, you're wrong. No, these listeners will come through. They always do. I mean, I asked for an obscure one a couple weeks ago, and my listeners found it for me. This one's not even as obscure. Well, a listener found it. That's all I need is one. Like a trade. It only takes one team. Sports Bash, live, 97.3 ESPN. It's Happy Hour Friday. And my Happy Hour IPA of the weekend is Drake's Kickback. Where can I buy it, though? I got to be able to find it if I want to drink it. I know someone out there will find it. I have faith in this group of listeners. Back with more. All right, do you remember July the 9th? It's the weekend edition, Happy Hour Friday. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike, try Efes, a Turkish beer at Plaza in Ventnor. Okay, I might. I don't. I know where Plaza is. There is a place in Ventnor that has the Drake's Kickback. Just they haven't had it the last couple times I've gone there. But I will try your Turkish beer. But can you go to the place and find out they have Drake's Kickback for me before I drive to Ventnor? Oh, man. I appreciate everybody looking. If you find it, you will be forever. I will forever be grateful. All right. Do you remember it's the weekend edition? On this day, July the 9th is the day. We'll do 9th, 10th, and 11th. A couple fun events. You all set for this? Josh Eddings, my producer.
How you doing, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, having a good one. Happy Hour Friday, man.
Happy Hour, man, yeah.
This is it right here. 1946, Ted Williams hit 2 home runs, including the only one ever recorded off Rip Sewell's Ephus pitch in a 12-0 American League win in the Major League Baseball All-Star Game at Fenway Park. The Ephus was a junk pitch Sewell used to catch batters off guard. It didn't catch on.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who tried to throw those junk balls in the past.
The Ephus pitch?
This hasn't worked out for them the same way. I remember for a while there, Jamie Moyer was trying to throw a version of this pitch, and it didn't work out too well for him. Because at that point, Jamie Moyer already threw slower than slow. Now you're trying to throw extra slow, and batters just watch it go by. They're like, I'm not even going to try to swing that.
We've been finding great tennis names from the past all week. 2001, Goran Ivanisevic beats Patrick Rafter in 5 sets to win Wimbledon's men's single title. Ivanisevic did not qualify for an automatic bid. He became the first wild card entry awarded at the discretion of the event organizers to win a Grand Slam. The Croatian dedicated his victory to fellow countryman and New Jersey Nets guard Drazen Petrovic, who was killed in a car accident in 1993, who would have been a tremendous player for the Nets. But the tennis names of the past continue this week, and that's the first time we've seen Goran Ivanisevic and Patrick Rafter.
Patrick Rafter is probably the best pull, though. That's one of those classic. That guy was a tennis player.
Patrick Rafter, he's the tennis player, dude.
Yeah, that's a tennis player name.
Yankee shortstop Derek Jeter has his 3,000th career hit. It's a home run off David Price, who was pitching for the Rays at the time in a 5-4 win at Yankee Stadium.
David Price, he pitched for the Rays, he pitched for the Red Sox, he pitched for the Tigers, he pitched for the Dodgers.
Tigers, Rays, Dodgers, Red Sox.
I think that was it. Wait, did he pitch for the Blue Jays at one point?
I think so. Is he done?
He's pitching for the Dodgers now.
Oh, I thought so.
He just didn't play last year due to the opt-outs.
Derek Jeter, 3,000 hits. And I always wonder if Jeter would be Jeter if he didn't play for the Yankees.
That is one of the great questions of sports because of the fact that it's true. If you have a guy who's famous for one thing, which is being a winner, which is what Derek Jeter was, does he have the same accolade? Is he a Hall of Famer in the same way, being that first ballot, no nonsense, everybody lets him in kind of guy? If he played for, let's say, the Royals,
right? I always say
had 3,000.
It's funny because I always say if he's playing for the Kansas City Royals, he's still Derek Jeter.
No, he's not.
It's like Babe Ruth. If he's not on the Yankees, is he Babe Ruth? That name, man. That thing continues to come up and be a story. Like the name Babe Ruth, Cy Young, Derek Jeter, Yankee, Derek Jeter, Royal. Not the same.
It's not the same.
1999, Brandi Chastain scores the winning goal in overtime. In a shootout, United States beats China 5-4 at the Rose Bowl in the FIFA Women's World Cup. She celebrates the goal. It's one of the most iconic moments in sports. 90,000 spectators, the largest crowd to ever watch a women's sporting event.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where that launched the modern age of women's sports popularity, in my opinion. I think that before that, women's sports was not looked at the same way as it is today if it wasn't for what happened with that Women's World Cup, because that was the first time people celebrated a women's championship in the same way they would celebrate men's. And now you could argue today, you don't even care about the men's soccer team.
Well,
they care about the women's soccer team.
They're just so disappointing. You don't even take them seriously.
You can't, but you take the women seriously.
Have to. Well, and it shows you that, well, I don't know how seriously other sports take women's soccer, I guess. There's other countries that don't even allow women to have the same rights still.
Well, there's that issue, yes. But the funny thing is, depending on what country you go to, it's interesting always to see what parts of the world are interested in what sports. Like I remember when I was at the PFL last month about how they talked about how, in Brazil, mixed martial arts is huge, right? Soccer is huge. Basketball is behind those two. You know what I mean?
That's obvious. In other countries, the things that we value here, they don't.
Right.
They're way behind us.
Like, for example, Amanda Nunes is a huge star down in Brazil, for example, whereas, if you go to a women's fighter like, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, when she was the champion of the women's division for herself, she went back to Poland, half the country didn't know who she was.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think certain countries value certain sports more than others. Obviously, here, soccer is not one of the ones that, for whatever reason, it is not caught on, I think, at the level they had hoped it would 20 years ago, when soccer was beginning to kind of, it's going to get big. It still hasn't gotten to that sport, specifically for the men's side of things.
Well, yeah, because part of the problem is that soccer is the sport that you send your kids to play to kill time, but you don't actually watch with your kids on television. So you're basically raising an entire generation of people who they love football because they watch football. Everybody watches football.
You wonder, though, when that's going to go away. The kids are not. Obviously, the numbers are way down on who's playing football. But at what point will that threshold cross? That's where I just don't see it happening anytime soon to make an impact. They can make an impact that it is noticeable results.
And realistically, half people who love soccer are also FIFA gamers. There are people who play the FIFA video game and then they watch the games in real time. So if there was no FIFA video game, would half those people even care?
On this day, July the 9th, the All-Star Game, 7-7 tie after 11 innings due to the teams running out of available players. In that game, by the way, Torrey Hunter robs Barry Bonds of a home run in the first inning. Following that catch, Bonds came out to play the outfield, and he confronted Hunter, if you remember that. But they also decided that the game was going to mean something. That was in 2002. They made the All-Star Game for a home field advantage in the World Series. Not a lot of people really liked it.
I didn't like it.
They thought it was going to help the ratings.
I felt it just completely, disenfranchised the regular season. You have this great season. If you're a team that wins 110 games, but you don't have home field advantage because the other league won the All-Star Game, it just felt so hollow to me.
Well, see, I don't like the fact that in baseball or any sport, really, you don't play the same schedule. So you winning 110 games doesn't necessarily mean you deserve to be the home field. You don't play the National League.
It shouldn't devalue what you did just because.
No, but you made the playoffs. You might be the number one seed in that side. I liked it because I felt that it made the game more compelling. That's all.
I think if you care about the baseball All-Star Game being compelling, what you do is you stop putting one player from every team in there.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them getting rid of that. Yeah, I just wasn't one of those people that was like, oh, it's stupid that the game matters. I thought those games were fun. I thought that those games felt a little bit more like that had something. The problem that a lot of people had with it was, hey, you have a guy from the Royals up the bat and his team's not even in it, so what the hell does he care? I mean, they ended up getting rid of it a couple of years ago. Look, I didn't watch it then, so quite honestly, and I don't really watch it now. I think the All-Star Game is kind of just, it's kind of outlived its excitement for me.
Listen, I still watch All-Star Games for the most part, aside from the Pro Bowl, which I don't watch. But, I enjoy them. But I feel like what basketball gets is what baseball doesn't get, which is you got to promote your stars. In baseball, you mentioned yesterday or the day before about how Ohtani should be bigger.
Yeah, well, they are trying with this home run derby. They do have the best players in their derby.
They do, and I think that'll help. But will that translate to the next day for the All-Star Game? We'll find out.
Yeah, they do. They do have their best players in the derby. I will give him that.
Yeah, Ohtani, Vlad Jr. They have the young stars in there.
On this day, Chris Bosh goes from the Raptors to the Heat. He finishes off the Heat big three with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James.
Is Chris Bosh one of the most underrated players the last 20 years?
That's a good question. I mean, yes and no. I mean, he's on a team with LeBron and Wade, so you expect him to get overshadowed. You do that to yourself when you make that decision.
Sure, but I think people don't value him as much because he did a lot of the dirty work for that Heat team. He had to play the big men. He had to go get the rebounds. He changed his entire game to fit around those players. You could argue that if Chris Bosh played with another big three, he might have been the main guy in the big three. But instead, when he joined LeBron and Dwayne Wade, he was unselfish enough to do that.
All right, 1914 Babe Ruth makes his major league debut. He pitched for the Red Sox 4-3 in that game there. And also to close things out here, Nolan Ryan becomes the first pitcher to reach 4,000 career strikeouts. He strikes out Danny Heap of the Mets. He finishes with 5,714. And the Capitals acquire Jaromir Jagr in 2001 from the Penguins for 3 prospects. And that happened on this day. There you go.
Who was the bigger ageless wonder, Nolan Ryan or Jaromir Jagr?
That's a good question. Both of those guys performed well into past their expiration date, you would think. Bob Wankel's here. He's going to talk a little Phils. How big is this weekend series with the Red Sox? Why have the Phillies been able to play some better baseball? And can they build on it? And if they do, don't they have to build on their bullpen? We'll ask him coming up next here on a Happy Hour Friday. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. So I do have a couple people who have been searching for the Drake's Kickback beer. I do appreciate that. Someone said they found one in Berlin, but I'm not driving to Berlin to go get beer. But my man Bob Wankel might pick some up for me if he's heading down the seashore this weekend as he joins me on Happy Hour Friday. I'm looking for the Drake's Kickback. I know a couple places down here that typically have it, but the last few times I've gone, they haven't had it. So I have an APB out to the listeners to come get it for me.
I'll tell you what, Berlin's in my neighborhood. It's within striking distance. I can maybe do you a favor. I got to get the exact location, but shoot me a DM and maybe I can handle that for you.
There you go. Kyle Dubray's got it up on the screen. Canals Discount Liquor, Berlin, Route 73. Boom. I know where that is. I'm just not making that hike.
Yeah, I know exactly where that's at. So maybe I can get over there this weekend for you.
All right. Well, this weekend's a big one. I mean, it's an interesting one anyway. You win 5 out of 7. 3 out of 4. I think the Wheeler loss is kind of disappointing. You could have swept that series, but some better baseball. Why?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is that they're really swinging the bats well. Getting Didi Gregorius back and defensively was a little bit of a hiccup this week, but having him and both Gene Segura back, getting this lineup kind of clicking here a little bit, creating a little bit more depth in it. They've had a nice week. And, before you write it off and say, hey, the Cubs have been one of the worst teams in baseball here over the last few weeks, one of the main criticisms we have about the Phillies is that they don't take care of business against inferior opponents. Look what they've done with the Marlins over the last number of years. So the fact that they had a team that was kind of reeling a little bit and they were able to take advantage of it, good for them. I think that that's a positive sign.
And, they do it last night, getting 3 home runs from Brad Miller. And it's the first time it's seemingly that Girardi has pushed the right button because people were looking at the lineup last night, kind of scratching their head. And the guy he puts in that spot is the guy who essentially wins them the game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it was a little bit of a gamble for sure, and you look at the splits off that starter last night, and lefties had an OPS that was nearly 400 points higher than righties. So it made some sense from a statistical standpoint, but when you look at Andrew McCutchen, he's been one of the hottest hitters in the sport over the last month, and Rhys Hoskins had 4 extra base hits in the series and kind of had been heating up a little bit. So it was a gamble by Girardi, but it certainly worked out last night, and Jankowski was on base 2 times for McCutchen as well. So Joe did a nice job, and maybe he can gain a little bit of momentum and start pressing the right buttons himself as well.
That would be helped if he had some better buttons to push in that bullpen. And obviously, I don't know how big is because they play Boston. If they can just kind of hang here, they'd be 4 back if everything kind of plays out this weekend. And then it's very interesting, Bob. They got 4 with Miami, who they have struggled with. They've got Atlanta for 4. They've got Washington for 8. And then before they get to the Mets in August, by the time they get to the Mets, it should be pretty interesting. They would have had to have made a decision at the trade deadline. But you wonder how many games back do they need to be when that deadline comes for Dombrowski to say, I'm going to do something to help this team out?
Scott Fransky asked Dave Dombrowski this the other night. And his answer was that it's not so much about being within a certain number of games. It's more about how we're playing. So if the Phillies are, and I agree with that to an extent, I don't think that that's entirely being honest. I think if the Phillies are 4 games back, 5 games back, and they continue to play better baseball here, they're swinging the bats, you see a reason for optimism. That looks a lot different than, both the Mets and Phillies lose 6 out of their next 8, so I think it's a combination of things, but to answer your question for me, if they get to July 30th and they're thinking about making a move, I think they have to be within 5 games. I think for me, 5 games is probably the line. And you have to remember too, it's not just 2 teams. It's not just the Mets and the Phillies. It's this Nationals team that's hovering around, and it's this Braves team that's hovering around as well. So if you get beyond that, I would be a little bit more reluctant to, go in and add. But if they stay within a handful of games here by July 30th, I think it's something they got to think about doing here.
They moved Segura to the leadoff spot. Does he stay there?
Joe has said recently that he, doesn't want to hit Gene in a leadoff spot. He kind of likes the idea of him hitting, in the 2-hole. And I agree with that. I don't think that Gene Segura by any stretch is your prototypical leadoff guy. In a perfect world, you get a guy on ahead of him and he can use all fields and slap the ball around and really do what he does best. Get guys in motion and make some things happen. But this team has really struggled to get production from the leadoff spot pretty much all year now. And I think for the time being, this is probably what you're going to see. Odubel Herrera has certainly been the Phillies' best center field option. He's not starting tonight. Jankowski's actually playing over him. And they kind of have to get him going again. So for me, Odubel Herrera just doesn't have the on-base percentage to kind of lock him in as the leadoff guy. So you have to do it out of necessity.
Yeah, and I know that, they've mentioned earlier in the week that they were just kind of giving him some rest, right? That they were going to let him kind of just take some days off here. And Jankowski has to, other than getting run down by the catcher his first night, he's actually been a solid little piece for them. But obviously Herrera, when he comes back, do they put him back in the leadoff spot, or do you think he's better off hanging in the 8-hole?
I think until they get him going again, they're going to keep him at the bottom of the order. I think that you'll see him hit 7th or 8th until, he gets on another one of those streaks, or, assuming that he will.
Yeah, assuming that he will. All right, we got so much this weekend. They got the Red Sox, who are 20 games over 500. They've been the best team in the American League. You got Vince Velasquez, you got Matt Moore, and you've got Nola. So as much as there's been some good vibes, these three haven't been giving them to you.
No, this is a really interesting weekend for them. Boston went 3-3 on a West Coast swing. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Angels, and now they're coming back home. And like you said, they've been arguably the best team in the American League this season. You can make an argument that the Astros are right there with them. So now the Phillies kind of have to, elevate their play a little bit. Going from a team in Chicago that is bad, has been playing poor baseball, and was a little bit dinged up. And now you're getting a really good Red Sox team. That being said, they faced Garrett Richards tonight since the spider tack thing kind of came into play and the sticky substances came into play. Garrett Richards has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball. So him versus Velasquez tonight is a game that, really is kind of a toss-up. I think the Phillies can hang around in that game or certainly have a shot to win. I think the odds reflect that. Phillies are, I believe, like a plus 115 underdog tonight. So they're in the ballpark there. And then, tomorrow, Matt Moore going up against Perez. The Phillies are at a clear disadvantage tomorrow. And you've got to find a way with Aaron Nola on Sunday to beat Nick Pivetta. But Aaron Nola, after his most recent start, you look at it, among qualified starters in Major League Baseball, the day after he made his most recent start, only 9 pitchers across the sport had higher ERAs than Aaron Nola, 9 starting pitchers. And so he has, at this point you could say it. He's given them some really good outings, but he's having a bad year. And he's certainly having a bad year compared to the expectations.
Yeah, and I would imagine, I know this is a little ways off and maybe not even a possibility, but if they had to pitch in a playoff scenario, that they got to give the ball to Zach Wheeler in any game 1 scenario, correct?
Yeah, and if everything were to hold here, and listen, here's the thing you have to keep in mind. If the season ended today, sure, it would be Zach Wheeler. But for the Phillies to overcome the Mets and hold off the Braves and Nationals, you have to assume that Aaron Nola has pitched really well down the stretch in the second half. So, fair. I mean, it's kind of a hypothetical type of situation, but right now, if season ended today, it's Wheeler 1, Nola 2, because you just have that respect for him, and then Zach Eflin 3.
I get asked so much, Bob, and obviously I'm sure you do too, like, would they ever consider trading Nola, and what kind of value does he have?
Would you ever consider trading Aaron Nola? Maybe, but you certainly don't do it now. This would be the lowest point that you could sell Aaron Nola since he's been a major league pitcher. So I don't really see the wisdom in that unless there's a team that really loves him. And we've talked over the last few weeks, right, about like changing the complexion of the Phillies roster. Yep. If some major league team had a piece that just they didn't love and they wanted to go change the scenery straight up, that's the only hypothetical I could work through. But I don't see that happening. I mean, the chances of that happening, I think, are 1 in 1,000 at this point.
Now, it was suggested that they should listen if someone calls for Wheeler. Would they?
If they were to completely tank over the next 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't hate the idea of listening. Because if you're not going to make a run this year, if you fall 9-10 games out and you're not going to get to where you want to be, how do you not listen to offers, especially offers that would return high-level prospects that are more advanced, guys that are in AA that are a year or maybe 2 max away? The Phillies can't, though, take on high-level prospects or low level prospects with high ceilings. Like they can't get guys that are 4 or 5 years away for a player like Wheeler. But if they're 3 or 4 games out, there's just no way that you can sell that to the Bryce Harpers, the JT Realmutos, the Andrew McCutcheons of the world, the Didi Gregoriuses of the world. Assuming that, they might as well trade, Segura. They might as well trade McCutcheon too.
Real quick, I know we're hearing a lot of the Cubs. They're going to be sellers. Does any of the guys there, the Bryants, Rizzos, obviously Kimbrel would, but any match?
I mean, Craig Kimbrel makes a lot of sense, and he's a guy that has an option, so it wouldn't be a 2-month, 3-month rental. Chris Bryant, if you could bring Chris Bryant and Craig Kimbrel here in a package, I think that makes the Phillies better than the Mets. I think they could run past the Mets in the division this year. But what are you trading to do that? And you're talking about some pretty good assets coming back to you, so you're going to have to give up something. So, is that one of your more advanced guys at AA or AAA? They have some interesting prospects at single A. Like, what are the Cubs interested in? Do they want a guy like Alec Bowman return? Do they want a guy that's already been in the show, that's shown some promise? That's tough. But if the Phillies had an opportunity within reason that didn't include like Mick Abel or Bryson Stott, and you could get back Craig Kimbrel, man, I would certainly explore that possibility.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on. We were looking at that yesterday, like, hey, what do you have that they would want to get Kimbrel? And if you just fix that one spot, you've blown 22 saves. If you could fix that, does that change the dynamics of the second half of the season? It just might. Bob Wankel, look for that beer for me, man.
I will. I'm on it.
Crossing Broad is where you can find Bob's Phillies coverage all weekend long. Phillies, Red Sox heading in to All-Star Weekend. I'll talk to you, pal.
All right, Mike, we'll talk to you.
Bob Wankel back on Monday to look back at the Phillies weekend against the Sox, and then we'll do a first half review. We'll see where they are. 4 back, 5, 3, who knows? Better vibes around this Phillies team? They're going to have to show me something this weekend against the Red Sox. I'm Mike Gill. This hour brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. If you're not a prop swapper yet, you are not making money selling sports bets, and you should be. The British Open next weekend. Prop swappers, get involved. Start buying those British Open tickets now. All right, Happy Hour Friday. It starts now with the PT. It's a Happy Hour Friday. Of course, Pete Thompson here on a Friday, as we'd like to do, have a little fun. Now, we got a lot to dive into with the PT here today. As we know, it is a Friday edition of Sports Bash. Happy Hour Friday brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage in South Jersey. For your next local or long-distance move, Clark's Moving and Storage is your first call. Dependable and always show up online, clarksmoving.net. There he is, Pete Thompson on the video. If you're watching live over at 973 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as a Happy Hour Friday to you there, Peter.
Hello, Michael. Happy Hour Friday to you as well, sir. Heard you was talking about ballparks earlier, and I sent you a little text. I'm sure you got it.
How cool is what Susie Hunter's doing?
It's great. I mean, good for, and it's raising money for the Boys and Girls Club. I'm a big fan of that too. You know, I mean, it's a win-win-win. You know, I mean, and you're right to be able to be in a position where she says, "So I left my job," and you know, not everybody can do that.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize. Yes, she said her contract expired, and she just decided not to renew it, and she wanted to start something else, and this is the perfect time to do it. I, for one, would love to do it. Now, you said Petco Park in San Diego. That's one that I have not been to before. I guess of all the ones I have not been to, that or San Francisco would be the top two on my list.
We liked Petco Park so much, we went back a couple of years later. The first time we were at Petco Park was an Easter series early in the spring and in April. And Roy Halladay had a one-hit shutout or something like that on Easter Sunday. Susan and I were in San Diego. Now, that time we stayed at the Hilton, which is across the street from the ballpark. But the second time we went, we stayed at the Omni, which is connected to the ballpark and which is also where the Phillies stay. So we had gotten in and they had one more game in Philadelphia, and we had gotten out there and did our travel and all that, went out to dinner somewhere. And when we were coming back into the hotel, these big buses were up in front, you know, and they let us into the hotel because we were guests, but then they kind of had us stand off to the side. And that's the infamous Chase Utley story where all the players are kind of walking in, and Chase Utley had been, I think, injured, and he was good, but he was going to join them on the trip and try to work his way back. This was right before they were basically working Chase Utley into game shape to get him ready to be traded. And he was on the trip, though, and so he comes walking through the lobby, and I'm looking right at him, and he leans over to Frank Koppenbarger and says, "Who the hell is that?" You know, because I had my Phillies golf shirt on. I look like Joe Fan, right? And God bless him, Koppenbarger's like, "That's Pete Thompson, the guy down the shore. Like, he's not looking for an autograph." And then Chase, like Frank came over and said hello, But, you know, 3-4 times Chase was giving me the stink eye because, you know, he thought some Phillies fan was going to bother him for an autograph in the hotel. Right. No, I didn't want an autograph.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone to a bunch of different stadiums all over, probably about, you know, a little bit less than half, but right around half. And San Diego would be one. San Francisco. Now, have you been to San Francisco?
I have not been to San Francisco either, and I would like to go to San Francisco, although, you know, that's not necessarily my dining cuisine of sushi and calamari at the ballpark.
They have other things. I'm sure you've got a hot dog at the baseball game.
Well, thank God.
San Francisco.
You know, I mean,
you go to San Francisco, the only offerings they have are squid.
But see, that's what, thinking of food and drink, you would really like San Diego because at the time, you know, I was trying to drink the country out of Miller Lite, and that was my beer, right? That's all I would drink was Miller Lite, Miller Lite, Miller Lite. And it was harder to get a Miller Lite than it was to get like a Harpoon IPA or whatever, you know. I mean, so all the craft beers. So I think you would, you and the missus would really like that. I think you guys.
Oh yeah, I have no adversity to checking out Petco Park in San Diego. I think the top 3 that I want to go check out that I haven't yet. Now it's interesting because Susie said that the new, I forget what it's called, but where the Texas Rangers played. Now, when I went to ballpark at Arlington, that was somewhat of a new stadium. They got rid of that thing pretty quickly, and I wasn't all that impressed with ballpark at Arlington. But she said the new one is magnificent.
Yeah, isn't it crazy, these places that have like 2 or 3 different ballparks, Atlanta the same way, you know, like since Citizens Bank Park has been built. You don't think of Citizens Bank Park as being old, but.
No, you don't, but it's been there since 2004. Like, okay, so you're going on like 15, 20 years for that ballpark soon. Like, I can't even imagine being around for them to build a new ballpark.
Right. And then, like, the one that started it all, Camden Yards, when Camden Yards was built and everybody thought, what a great ball. And that really hasn't had any improvements, or, I mean, I guess it's had some cosmetic stuff, but they haven't done much to it. My one beef on Camden Yards, and since we're getting to the All-Star game and it's hot and hazy and humid, and I always remember this story, there's no air conditioning in the press box. Those old newspaper guys, we're like, no, we need to hear the game. We don't want the windows. We don't want windows. Don't even put them in, right? So they didn't put windows in the. Now upstairs where the TV booths are and stuff, you got TV equipment. You got to have some AC. You can't be blasting. You can't just have 90-degree heat. But that's the Mike Trout story. When we went down and covered him as a rookie, and I probably had like heat exhaustion. I mean, we got there. The Tim Meade, who is no longer the Angels PR guy, got in trouble for all that stuff out there in Anaheim. Tim Meade was the guy, and he told me, well, be in the Angels dugout at 10, but he was thinking 10 like LA time. He hadn't quite adjusted his clock yet, and so he's I was already on the road. I get there. I mean, I'm literally like one of the first people to show up to the stadium.
Fine.
And Torrey Hunter was there and very nice to me. I remember that at the time. And I also remember thinking it was so GD hot that they weren't going to take BP. Like, where was I going to be able to get any B-roll of Mike Trout? But I got plenty, signed a lot of autographs. I actually, Citizens Bank Park, they're so vigilant about where you go with a camera. Camden Yards, I could have gone anywhere I wanted and filmed anything I wanted.
Yeah, I don't know how this came up the other day, but they built Lincoln Financial Field, which is somewhat new but getting older.
I want to say that's 07. Does that sound right?
I thought it was 1 year after. I thought they were like 1-1.
All right, so maybe okay, yeah. So Citizens Bank Park is 04 and Lincoln Financial Field's 05. That would make sense.
I think so. I think they were like boom, boom, just like that. But a couple of years ago, those things.
03. That's surprising. August of 03. Go ahead.
That's right. The link was actually first, and then came Citizens Bank Park. That's right. But you think about the Vet, which was falling apart, old, and needed to be replaced. How old was the stadium? It was like 30 years.
The Vet 71 to 04, right? So that's 30 years or 33 years. I mean, that's not that bad. The thing is that the Vet was built as the multi-purpose stadium. And if you're the Phillies, which they were, they wanted a baseball stadium first and foremost, not this cookie cutter Busch Stadium, Three Rivers, Veterans Stadium. All three of those were out of that same ilk. I mean, it's interesting because if you think about, and I know you've been to KC, haven't you?
I have not been to Kansas City, no.
Oh, okay. Well, they're both in the parking lot. Arrowhead and Kauffman are right in this. They share the parking lot together. Yeah, which makes for some great tailgating. Which, by the way, is an easy segue to my barbecue fest thing. If you wanted to talk about that at all.
Oh, that's on my list here, Peter. I know what you're going to, but since you just brought it up, why don't you? You seem so eager.
Well, I'm eager. Yes, I am, because I didn't realize this, but I've learned a lot more about barbecue in the last 3 days than I ever knew. Did you know that there's 4 primary styles of barbecue? And can you name them?
Hold on. Yes, I think I can. Okay.
All right. One of the towns we were just talking about.
Yes, there is Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
There is Memphis.
That is correct.
There would be Texas.
That is correct.
And Carolina.
Very good. Yes, you went 4 for 4. I'm proud of you. And each one has like a little adaptation or a little bit slightly different than the other. Some have more sauce. Some are a little drier. Some have sweeter sauce.
City, which is like the Mecca, is known for like the brisket burnt ends. That I know.
Yes, that's the signature tell. Very good, Mike. You've been doing some research.
Memphis is like a little sweeter. I'm not a big Memphis because it's like tomato, and I'm not like a tomato guy. It's more like saucy.
Right. It does have sort of a sauce to it, that Carolina style, that Memphis style. Yes. Yeah. It's just the Carolina style is totally different. I mean, Carolina and Memphis are pretty similar to each other. There's just that sweet tomato based sauce that you're talking about might turn some people off. But yeah, this barbecue fest I'm going to tomorrow is they're sanctioned by the Kansas City Barbecue Society. So I mean, it's the real deal. This is legit.
That's absolute. Now, you'll be down there tomorrow from 12 to 2, and you can see the PT down there. He'll be calling into Josh and getting people updates on where to go, where to check out, and hopefully you will. I know that the PT doesn't quite indulge as much as he used to, but hopefully you'll go down there with a little room for the barbecue.
Oh, absolutely. I'll you know what? I'll go light on breakfast is what I'll do. So by the time that I get to 2:00, I'll be ready to pound down some barbecue. You know it. Absolutely.
All right, a couple things I want to get to. Brad Miller hit 3 dongs last night.
How about it?
The lineup tonight. But the Phillies have won 5 out of 7. You buying this little hot streak?
Well, it's certainly nice to see. Am I buying it? Like as far as Brad Miller goes, too, I didn't know they had that many hats. I always thought it was just one homer hat. So that's something I learned last night, that they actually carry 4 at a time, just in case one of the hats gets damaged or something like that. He said he was going for the 4th. Am I buying it? Look. You saw this rotation for the 3 games. I mean, Nola's Sunday, fine, but the other 2 guys that are going don't necessarily inspire confidence and strength, do they? Right? I mean, I'm not really fired up to see Vince Velasquez and his 3-3 record tonight, or Matt Moore and his 0-1 record. But we talked on Tuesday about the pitching and the way it's set up against the Cubs, and I would have never dreamed that Zach Wheeler would have been the one that got the loss out of those games in that series with the Cubs. So,
I said that was about like, if that night Wheeler losing was like, even though they took 3 out of 4, like that just took the wind out of your sails. It's like, all right, this is set up for a sweep, man. You've got to sweep this series, and they didn't get it done, and it was disappointing.
Yeah, and yet they're 1 game below 500. They're not that, the division is walking its way back to them. They're within striking distance. And I know we did talk about this on Tuesday, too, that if they were in any other division anywhere else in baseball, 0 chance, like no chance. But the fact that they're in the NL East, they're Mary Samsonite, Mary Swanson. So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, it is definitely disappointing that they were unable to get the sweep there. And then they got the Red Sox here. And then coming out of the second half, it's definitely interesting. They got the Marlins. They play 8 against the Nationals. They've got the Braves in there for 4. A lot of NL East teams. So this NL East in July and early August, you're really going to start, I think, seeing the story to see if they're in this or not. Everybody's wondering if they should buy or sell. That's such a hard question, PT, because they don't have a lot to sell. They just don't. It's not a sellable.
They really don't. And they picked up a reliever the other day, and I think I retweeted it. They picked up a reliever, and I said something like, well, maybe this guy will be the guy, right? He's the son of Steve Bedrosian, for God's sakes.
Well, I know we were laughing because we said the PTs and the Billy Schweims of the world will love the fact that Bedrosian pitched here, and, is his father, Bedrock. I mean,
well, everybody jumped all over me like this pitcher's been released from 2 different organizations. Why do you think he's available? Yeah, I'm not saying I'm a moron. I understand that the guy isn't, but somebody's, as usual, somebody's trash might turn into your treasure. You just never know. And quite frankly, the pieces that they haven't necessarily been working. So why not give a flyer on a guy? Right?
Hey, look, they've tried this with everybody. They've tried with Brandon Workin and Henry and David Hale, and this is
that gave me chills when you said his name. It's
not working. Like finding the vagabond cast-off just hasn't worked. Now, does one of them maybe have to work? Yeah, I mean, your guy Scott Air was DFA'd, and when the Phillies picked him up, the Cubs just said, "You take him." J.C. Romero, he got DFA'd. The Phillies picked him up. Those guys worked out, but that hasn't been working for him. I liken it to, Pete, a parent who doesn't know how to parent, so they just keep throwing money at their kid. Here, go buy yourself something. Get out of my hair. They can't fix problems by just throwing money. They have to raise these kids themselves. Otherwise, you're going to keep throwing money at your kids, and they're going to be jerks.
Well, and do you buy anything into the theory, too, that when Scott Air and Romero and different guys, when the Phillies landed on those guys, they landed on them in a different time? There are no secrets in baseball anymore. I think you used to be able – remember Jason Worth was a guy that had injured his wrist, and so they thought like the Dodgers didn't want him, so they said, okay, we'll take you, I mean, you could find guys, and I think even Scott Air would admit that he had some personality issues in Chicago, and they didn't see eye to eye, and yet when he came into Philadelphia, it just instantly clicked. So, but I think Scott Air, for example, was a known commodity. I think actually to the people that are ripping me on Twitter, to their point, there's just no secrets anymore. So that you're right. There's not a lot. They don't have a lot to sell, and there's not a lot out there right now.
You're getting ripped on Twitter for what?
A couple people were busting my stones for talking about that Bedrock kid, the son of Bedrock coming in.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a Billy Schwein, Pete Thompson dream there. That the son of a guy who pitched for the Phillies in 1987 gets picked up for the team's lousy bullpen now is like the story of the weekend, right? But I did appreciate, like, I thought you guys you asked some good questions to air, and I thought some of his answers made a lot of sense in terms of that he's like just strictly looking at the numbers. They just walk too many guys. Like you can't walk that many guys and have a successful bullpen. So I don't know how you fix that with the current crop you have.
Yeah, well, it's start throwing strikes is quite frankly what you need to do, right? And that's the thing I think that he talked about the most that's so baffling to him is, even guys, you can have guys with the greatest arm in the world. I'm thinking of you, Alvarado, who you can throw in the triple digits. You can throw 97-mile-an-hour off-speed pitches. Oh, my God, you're incredible. Can you actually throw one in the zone, dude? Can you actually put one in that little box?
You can't trust him. You can't trust him to throw strikes. And if you can't trust someone to throw strikes, you can't put them out there in high leverage situations. That's why the other day I'm looking through it, PT. I said, if I'm going by what Air said, I've got to throw Suarez. And it's funny because I said Bailey Falter, who had one walk in 14 innings, and then they put him in that night and he got ripped.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you don't get them all right, but you're trying to find the two guys that are good out of the bullpen, right?
No, I was going off of what Scott Air said.
Who are the strike throwers? Is what you're saying.
Yeah, who walks the least amount of guys? In other words, who doesn't put anybody on base for free?
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to look at Falter's numbers: 2.57 ERA and
what he did the other day because he got rocked.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm just looking. Yeah, 1 2/3, 6 hits, 5 runs. That's not what you're looking for.
Right before, the game they put him in relief. Now, I said that was not the best. They were up 15-4 when they put him in the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No doubt. I mean, I'm sitting here and I look through the bullpen, and is there a name in the bullpen? Like, if you were the opposing team, is there a name in the Phillies bullpen that scares you, whether it's like, oh, God, this guy's coming in? No. I don't think there's a single one.
Alvarado when he's throwing strikes.
And that's about it.
Correct.
And that's about it.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, Peter.
Because Archie Bradley hasn't been the same. Connor Brogdon has good moments, but he's not that guy that goes, oh, God, Connor Brogdon's coming in.
Yes, I agree with you. Brogdon's a guy that I like. I think he's the one young guy that they have in their system who you're like, okay, you could develop him, but I like you can't win with this bullpen. You can't hope that it gets fixed. You can't hope that it changes. It just – you got to do better. If you want to make the playoffs, you got to do better, and that's why I think these games are so important right now if Dombrowski is going to make a decision. Because the way I see it, Pete, they can't sell. They don't have sellable pieces. The only thing they can do is either stay where they are. Yeah, they can sell. Okay, they can sell Gene Segura. They can sell McCutchen, but don't expect anything in return. You're just looking at then stripping it back down.
Yeah, well, then you're selling for the sake of selling. You're selling for the sake of clearing up space. You're selling for that. That's not the right reason to sell. You're supposed to sell to get something back. You're supposed to sell to improve your baseball team.
Hey, I'm giving you this. You're giving me that, and I think that can help me. The only thing you're doing if selling that is just saying, hey, we need to clear salary out, restock our farm system, and hope.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And that's the thing. I guess that you're right. Gene Segura would be a sellable piece. McCutchen's been so hot, he would be a sellable piece. But what are you really getting back for them? You're not getting back instant talent.
No, I was saying this the other day. Someone texted in, oh, they need to sell. I said, who's calling the Phillies and saying, yeah, can I have your 34-year-old left fielder? Can I have your 31-year-old second baseman who's also making $14 million again next year? Like, yeah, I'll take him because I do value him, but I only value to take him by giving you nothing in return.
Yeah, I don't see people lining up around the block for aging ball players. That's another point too. Very, very well put.
Hey, Peter, we'll be at the barbecue festival tomorrow in Wildwood from 12 to 2. Go on down there and check them out. What else is happening? The Eagles are going to be starting in about 17 days.
You weren't able to – let me tilt this down here. There you go. You got that?
I do. You got an Eagles shirt on.
Yeah, today's the Eagles.
I love training Phillies.
I've been going a lot of Phillies lately, so I varied it up. I went some Eagles. I read a very interesting article today about what their stance is on tight end, and that Dallas Goedert might be the first person that they give an extension to, or maybe not.
Yeah, they've been talking about that and the Ertz thing. We had some great conversations for Football at 4 this week. It's amazing all summer long. Like there's seemingly stuff that keeps going on that around this team. It's amazing. This team makes news almost all the time. The Ertz stuff is out there. Steven Nelson, the whole thing. Did Slay? Slay sent him a tweet. Hey, you look good in green. Yeah, don't I know it, man? He says. I mean, basically something to that effect. Anyway,
right. They finally brought the Carson Wentz banner down off the link. Thank God, so people can stop bitching about that. The Eagles don't have to go on Hard Knocks, so that's fine.
British Open next week, Peter.
The Open Championship. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. You know where the seniors are playing right now? The U.S. Senior Open? No clue? No guess?
Nope.
Omaha Country Club.
Now, why would I guess that?
Oh, because PT, Omaha. That's my other town.
Well, I say, okay, so Tampa Bay Lightning have back-to-back Stanley Cups.
Yeah, don't care. I got to tell you, the only thing I was happy about was
No, I say that's my second. That's my second home, so I can adopt all.
Tampa Bay's your second home. That's funny. All right, I'll buy that. Sure.
So I'm now a Lightning fan and a Rays fan. I don't care about Tampa Bay, but I
thought Baltimore was your second home.
Yeah. Yep. But I go to Tampa more than I go to Baltimore.
Good on Tampa for doing what they did, and not for nothing, but like it starts and ends with their goaltender, but they knew the window was closing and they went out and got a couple extra pieces. And look, I mean, the Penguins did it in 16 and 17, but it's tough to win the Stanley Cup. It's really tough to repeat as Stanley Cup champs.
Shortest amount of time between winning one cup from the other. They won one cup, and 282 days later, they won another cup.
Oh, yeah, I see that. And then the Canadians, 358 days, but that was back in the late 60s. So that's interesting. Yeah.
So everybody talking about, the bubble and this quick, the Lakers, they had a deep run last year. Didn't bother the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well, not for nothing, but why?
Because their fans aren't tough on them. They just let them play.
We didn't even talk about that this week, did we?
I figured that's right up Billy Schweim's alley.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get an earful of it on Sunday.
We're tough people here.
I mean, come on. Like that somebody actually asked me, they said, why do you think Danny Green would do that? And do you think he knew who he was talking to? And I said, well, look, sometimes players are more comfortable when they're not like on camera. Players are more comfortable in a podcast setting than they'll be in like an actual live radio interview setting. But at the end of the day, Danny Green's not a moron. He had to know that anything that he says is good in this day and age. Anything. Yeah. And what I did, I was explaining this actually to the guy that works me out at the gym. I said, when you go to an Eagles press conference, now it's been a while since you and I have been at one, but do you remember how many cameras were along the back there, like TV cameras? Right.
I said, you go to Eagles, 40 guys are covering the team. Go to Indianapolis, 3.
Right, exactly.
You got 25 guys in the press box. Go to a Tampa Bay Rays guy, 2.
Yep.
Go to a Flyers game. There's 25 guys covering that game every night of the week. Go to a Lightning game. How many? 2.
100%. And that's the thing is like, I understand that we're not New York and I understand that we're not, like Los Angeles, but we're pretty darn close as far as media attention and especially with the football team, which, but now I think the Sixers are right. That's like 1 and 1A. So, look, if you can't handle the heat, then get the hell out of the kitchen. Give me a break.
Wow, Peter coming strong. All right, strong barbecue this weekend, tomorrow in Wildwood, 12 to 2. The PT will be there. He'll be checking in on Sports Bash Saturday tomorrow, which is also from 12 to 2. And he'll be back on Tuesday for a Tuesday with Thompson.
All right, pal. Looking forward to it.
All right, Peter.
Good to catch up.
Yeah, man. All right. Pete Thompson here on the Sports Bash, brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan now open, Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Across from the Home Depot. Visit them online at mattblattnissan.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. When we come back, Jeff Kerr's back. CBS Sports, little NFL conversation to close out our happy hour Friday. No one has found the Drake's kickback except for the one guy in Berlin, which is too far for me to drive. You're better than that, guys. You're better than that. I know you can do it. We have 24 minutes of showtime left. Can somebody find the Drake's kickback for me? Somebody said they found victory kickback. I don't think that's the one I'm looking for. But I appreciate the effort. But it's Drake's kickback that I'm looking for on this Happy Hour Friday. I'm Mike Gill. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, 5:31 on a Friday night. Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports will join me in just a second as we'll talk a little NFL. as we get ready for the weekend. By the way, we were doing a little look at the Major League Baseball draft this weekend with Mike McGarry earlier in the show. And a couple of local pitchers, read more about it at 973ESPN.com. Latest mock draft, 2 pitchers from the area, both potentially getting picked in the first round, one at number 20, one at number 22. Find out more about it over on our website, 973ESPN.com. Jeff Kerr from CBS will join me in just a couple of minutes there, and we'll talk a little bit of NFL news, notes, and stuff. You know, training camp is, 17 days away for the Eagles, something like that. And Jeff Kerr, Jeff does a great job, by the way. He's going to be covering the Eagles this season for us for 97.3ESPN.com. He'll be at training camp. He will be there on game days. He has that piece that we talked about the other day, 12 teams that never hoisted the Lombardi Trophy. That was a lot of fun. We also, if you go and check out some of the stuff that he's been talking about, the teams that we talked about that have not won Super Bowls, but one of the things they have over at CBS is the top 10 new faces in new places for 2021. They also have the young quarterbacks, the next Allen type, who's going to be that guy. 3 teams that helped the quarterback the most and the least, predicting the MVP of each NFC team as well. So there's a lot of great stuff that his team is doing over at CBS Sports for the foreseeable future. You can check that out. And Jeff Kerr at Jeff Kerr CBS. And, one thing about the Eagles, we were just kind of talking with PT, that whole tight end situation. What are they going to do with Zach Ertz? What are they going to do with Goddard? Are they going to utilize him more? Over at CBS Sports, the one guy that they named as the MVP for the Eagles was, oddly, a guy who was a rookie, Devonta Smith. He says the Eagles have a nice receiving core in Fulgham, Ward, and something that Adam Kaplan said yesterday regarding Fulgham. Man, his name slipped me there for a second. Adam Kaplan said something about Travis Fulgham, and I thought it was kind of interesting. This was last night. I think that this was from yesterday. No, Adam Kaplan was on yesterday's show. Man, I got my days all kind of mixed up here. But this is what Adam Kaplan had to say about Travis Fulgham yesterday here on the Sports Bash during Football at 4.
The Packers cut him once.
Right.
And from what I'm told, the Lions coaching staff did not want him on the roster. That's why he was cut a second time. So the maturity here issues here. You've got to grow up a little bit. You can't just show up and practice well and play well 75% of the time. It's kind of my read on this information that Moshe and I have had. But I could tell you, I was at his first training camp practice last summer. I was blown away. I didn't know anything about the guy. I didn't know his background. I knew he was a little bit of an older player for a young player, for a third-year player. And he is super gifted. And everything I've heard has been good about him. And, oh, by the way, we reported a couple months ago he had ankle surgery.
Right.
So, but I'm told it's fine. He's doing fine. So I would say the expectations are he's going to play a lot. He's going to be one of the top 3 receivers this season.
So the part of that we brought up here was they were talking about, this isn't about his practice habits. This isn't about any of that kind of stuff. This is more about he is a talented player on the field. And it was Greg Cosell who Adam was talking about. And he was saying, he's not speaking on his practice habits or what kind of person he is off the field or what he does on or off the field. All he's saying is the tape suggests that he's a pretty good player. And can this Eagles staff, this Eagles, younger wide receiver focused staff get more out of him? I think that will be a very interesting storyline because, look, Travis Fulgham for 4 weeks was like the best receiver in football, statistically speaking, right? Statistically speaking, he was one of the best receivers in football. So if they can get that kind of production out of him, how much does that help the offense, right? If they get him producing at the way that he produced for those 4 weeks, and then you have Devonta Smith, and maybe Jalen Reagor takes a step forward, what does that do for their offense moving forward? If you have a legitimate weapon in Fulgham, I think that is a storyline that definitely needs to be looked at a little bit closer. Is, hey, what if Travis Fulgham turns out to be the receiver that we thought he was or that I don't want to say that we thought he was. I don't think that's fair. Turns out to be the receiver that burst on the scene and absolutely took over the league for a handful of weeks. Because that would really be a shot in the arm for this team, right? Wouldn't that be a shot in the arm for this team? It would be a huge shot in the arm for this team. Travis Fulgham, I don't think we could stress enough about how much of a asset he was for those weeks. He burst on the scene with 435 yards and 4 touchdowns in 5 games last year. 435 yards in 5 games last year. Are you kidding me? And I say in 5 games, it's not really to like that include a 5th game. I don't even think is really that fair. Because the game against San Francisco, he only had 2 catches. He had 3 targets. If you take that San Francisco game out where he had 2 catches for 57 yards, the 4 weeks, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Giants, Dallas, he had 10, 6, 5, 6 targets. 27 targets he had. And then the rest of the way, he had 27 targets in 4 weeks. The rest of the way, he had 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. He had 9 targets the rest of the way. Are you kidding me? So 27 targets in a 4-week span and 9 the rest of the way? I don't understand what he did in practice to make him absolutely get phased out completely of the offense. But what would happen if he was the guy that we saw over those 4 weeks? What does that do for the Eagles offense? I think that's a fascinating kind of conversation to watch as we get to training camp. And obviously the Eagles will benefit from that offensively to have 3 receivers who can that can all add something a little different. They haven't had that bigger guy, that bigger physical guy. Well, Fulgham adds that. They haven't had that guy that can be a playmaker. Devonta Smith adds that. They haven't had that guy in the bubble screen. They haven't had that guy that can kind of take the jet sweep. Well, hopefully Jalen Reagor. All 3 of them, though, have question marks. All 3 of them are guys that we just don't know the answers to them because of inexperience, youth. Fulgham, very little playing time. Smith, rookie. Reagor, injuries. All of that. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Tom in the Villas trying to find the Drakes for me. Williamstown buy right. Yep. They have a buy right in Ventnor that has it too, but they haven't had it the last couple times I've gone there. Very disappointing, Tom, but I appreciate it. If you find it out there, anybody finds it out there, I'm running out of time. I'm running out of time today. And we have had a couple people like sniffing around. I'll give those people some credit. I got one guy here that says, I almost had it for you, Mike. Circle Liquor in Summers Point has victory kickback. I never heard of victory kickback. I'm not sure that's definitely not. I know it's Drake's. That I'm positive of. Jeff says, can't find that IPA anywhere out here. I don't know where it's actually brewed from. I don't know where Drake's is out of. It's been a fun day, by the way. We had a good show, a lot of fun. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. If you missed it, Susie Hunter on her ballpark tour, all where the stops. Bob Wankel and the Phils. Don't forget the Best of the Sports Bash tomorrow. Starts at 8:30. That takes you till 10 with Billy Schweim in the locker room. And then Sports Bash Saturday, Josh tomorrow. Coming up tonight on game night, Josh has Phillies insider Frank Close. We'll talk a little bit about the weekend series against the Boston Red Sox. And that, of course, is the last 3 games before we get to the All-Star break. And I can't believe we're already at the All-Star break, but here we are. It's been a very up and down season for the Phils. It has been one of those things. And by the way, I want to go back to the Eagles stuff real fast. Why we have a couple minutes here. So I don't know if people read this the other day. Zach Berman over at The Athletic was writing that Dallas Goedert will be featured in this offense. And I'm wondering when they say that they're going to feature him in the offense, Dallas Goedert, this is a guy that we keep wondering, can he be a better tight end than Zach Ertz, the best tight end in the history of your franchise? And it's weird to say this, but almost every single person that we've had this conversation with who's covered this team, they all think that Goddard is a more explosive player than Ertz. And I don't disagree with the more explosive part, but does that mean that he is going to put up bigger numbers? Can you imagine what we were just talking about with Fulgham? What if Fulgham is the real deal? What if Goddard is a more explosive player than Ertz? What if Devonta Smith isn't a bust? This team has a lot of what ifs, but if those what ifs become realities, wow, it's pretty crazy, isn't it? To think that this is a team that has had black when it comes to weapons, and then all of a sudden, Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith, Travis Fulgham, Jalen Reagor, and we haven't mentioned Miles Sanders either. Could this offense, and I continue to say, and I will, I think they have the best offensive line in football if they're healthy. Health is a big thing. Got to happen. But if they're healthy, probably best offensive line, if not one of the top 5 offensive lines in football. What does that mean for their offense? What does that mean for their offense if their offensive line is healthy with those weapons that are all playing? Fulgham, like he did for those 4 games, Goddard featured in the offense, Devonta Smith, many people think he was the best rookie receiver in the draft, Travis Fulgham, Jalen Reagor, a first-round pick the year ago. Well, the pressure all goes to the quarterback. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I'll have to check in on what happened with Jeff Kerr. I never heard from him. I hope he's okay. Not like Jeff Kerr to just vanish, disappear. But hopefully he's okay. Jeff Kerr, of course, CBS Sports and 97.3 ESPN. We missed him on the Friday today, but he'll be back on Monday, I'm sure. If he's okay, I hope he's okay. We'll wrap up the show on the other side. Hey, a couple of interesting things happened on this day that we never got to. We'll get to that and more to close out the show. Coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, get ready to wrap up the show here on a Friday. Happy Hour Friday, everybody. I'm running out of time for this beer, Josh. I don't think anybody's going to find it for me.
You can't win them all, Mike.
Drake's Kickback. Anybody? Bueller. It's a good beer. You'll thank me if you actually find it and then buy it and then drink it.
The key is you got to find it first.
Yeah, that's been the problem. I haven't been able to find it at too many spots. Now, Drake's is all over the place. They have different beers that are readily available, but it's the one that I particularly like. It's like the low-cal, low-carb version.
Yeah, that aspect of it might be a bit of a hang-up.
Well, you've been seeing more and more and more and more and more of them. Like, they're out there readily available now.
We have been seeing them, but still finding them readily.
Yeah. Can you please talk into the microphone and hold off on that for just 1 minute and 57 seconds?
Is that better?
I mean, yeah, I think it is better. Is it asking too much to actually focus and talk? I can do it myself. I don't need your help if you don't want it. I think I'm being nice, and I'm inviting you to talk about your show and other things, and you're just not even listening to me.
I'm listening. That's a bit of an embellishment.
Well, I mean, you're going like this. It doesn't seem like you care too much.
Well, that's perception.
Well, perception sometimes is reality.
That is true.
And
yes.
The audio sound of it, the perception sounds as if, this guy sounds like he's preoccupied by something else. I think for 48 seconds, you'll be okay.
That was such a specific number.
Yeah.
48 seconds.
I did that for you.
Now we're down to 36 seconds.
You would be the one that would give me the exact second. 47 seconds.
Now, has anybody said anything to you about your shirt today?
Pete Thompson did.
Because I think it's one of your better shirts.
The shirt's old as dirt.
That makes a good shirt, though.
Yeah. This is back when Under Armour had the contract for MLB to make MLB stuff. They don't really have it anymore, so you can't get it. And the problem with the spring training stuff is you can only get spring training stuff in Clearwater. You can't get it anywhere else.
So it's almost like you had to be there. Like exclusive.
You have to be in Clearwater to get spring training stuff. You have to be in Clearwater to get.
Yeah, exclusively at Clearwater.
All right, so we had a couple things that we did not get to today. But in 1989, on this day, Bo Jackson hits a 448-foot home run. It's his first plate appearance as an American League All-Star. That game I remember vividly. Jackson was named the game's MVP. That is one of the highlight moments of All-Star games.
It's a shame that Bo had to go play football, because if he would have just stayed with baseball, he might have gone down as one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because he was such a dynamic football player, too.
He was, but he was
the best at both, like of all the guys that have done it.
He obviously could have been great at both, but I just have to wonder if he never would have gotten that hip injury, if he would just stay with baseball, if he would have just been like, if we would talk about like Ken Griffey Jr. and Bo Jackson in the same breath kind of thing.
Absolutely. Like, it was weird too, because he seemed like he was like such a raw baseball player.
Yeah.
Like that, if he just focused on that and that was all he did. But he did the hip problem, and then, that really derailed everything for him.
Yeah, he had a couple okay years after that with baseball, but it was never the same.
No. And then 2009, former boxer Arturo Gatti was found dead in his home hotel room in Brazil. Now, questions of foul play still persist on that. Persist.
Yeah, there were some rumors about, he had gambling debts he never paid and all kinds of other weird stuff that was circled around his head. But,
it was determined that it was a suicide.
Right.
If you remember back then. And here, I can't believe when I saw that today, 2009.
It seems like it was not that long ago.
I swear this seems like, if you told me it was 2 years ago, I would say probably.
Yeah, I thought it was close to like 2015 or something like that.
He's 37 years old when this happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, this happened on, it's on this day, weekend edition. So this happened it'll be Sunday, July 11th, that it actually happened. But you're going back to 2009. You're talking over 10 years ago that this happened.
Yeah, and, the thing with Gotti was it was more than just the trilogy he had with Mickey Ward. It was the fact that he felt like the people's champion kind of fighter. Like, he was a guy that people loved to watch because he just went out there and went blow for blow with anybody. He didn't care who you were.
Yeah, I was at his last fight against Alfonso Gomez. It was sad, man. Remember Alfonso Gomez was on that TV show?
Which one?
The boxers that were trying to find a boxer.
Oh, the Contender
The Contender series, yeah.
With Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah, and Alfonso Gomez was on that show. He didn't even win the show. He was just a contestant on the show.
Gotcha.
And he beat up Gotti pretty bad that night. Yeah. And that was, man, I got the pass up there. I can't see the date of that fight, but it was pretty bad watching like how far he had kind of gone. Dave Weinberg would probably have a lot more detail and story about all that. So I hear you and Weinberg have an interesting home run derby matchup.
Yeah, so I asked Dave before we actually knew the matchups who he was picking of the final field to win the home run derby. And Dave went Shohei Ohtani. And I said, well, I'm not picking him. I'm picking Soto from the Nationals. And I gave him my reason. He's like, oh, that's a good reason. So then later I find out that it's Soto versus Ohtani in the first round of the home run derby.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because last night we were talking about this, some of the younger guys that coached with me were saying about Guerrero, they like him. I said, when they gave me the list of the guys who were actually in, I said, man, they actually got the best players to do this. That's pretty cool. I might be into the home run derby competition. Now, I don't know about more than the hot dog eating competition, but.
So I asked Dave Weinberg that question as well.
I heard that.
Yeah. He said he'd be impressed if Joey Chestnut hit on him.
I did. I thought he gave a good answer. Like, at least he's appreciative of he's not anti-hot dog. He gets it. It's a July 4th thing.
Right.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for me. Don't forget Frank Close tonight at 6:20. And then game night, Sports Bash Saturday tomorrow. I can't read the one that the arm of the chair is blocking this gentleman's name.
Well, at 12:20, we have Jonathan Von Tobel from Hardwood Handicappers, and then at 1:40, Mark Ramondi from ESPN. They talk about UFC.
Oh, that's right. McGregor fights tomorrow night. He made weight.
Right. They all made weight.
Yep. Oh, and how about the Tyson Fury news?
Oh, that's just a mess.
Oh, unbelievable. All right, I'll be back on Monday. Hopefully everybody has a great weekend. I'll see you.